Bleach. Studying medicine can't save the spirit world. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyright or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 126. Unohana, draw your sword. Kaname, you are not superficial, but your vision is sometimes too narrow. Don't worry too much about the strength of the enemy, because there is no rival ahead of us. All we need is a companion who can step into the new world with us. At the end, Aiden Sosok's indifferent eyes revealed a bit of loneliness and sadness. Hearing this, Tosun Kaname was stunned. He instinctively knelt on one knee to Aizen Sosok and offered his loyalty. Tosun Kaname, I will follow the will of Aizen Sama and follow him closely. Aiden Sosok glanced at Tosun Kaname slightly, and his calm eyes revealed a trace of disappointment. Kaname, as expected, admiration is the farthest distance from understanding. If it were just a captain-level Shinigami's subordinates, I would have as many as I wanted. You are someone who can understand my thoughts a little, but you are completely unable to understand that fact. However, Aiden Sosok's face did not show his inner thoughts at all. Instead, he said with more appreciation. Kaname, I believe in your loyalty at all times, and the future you expect will surely come true. Thank you very much, Aiden-sama, Tosun Kaname answered excitedly, but was suddenly interrupted by the instrument in his hand, and then quickly reported. Aiden-sama, through the spiritual pressure of Seireitei, Kinpachi Zaraki, who was temporarily attracted to the 12th Division, has begun to move towards the direction of the 4th Division's barracks. Hearing this, Aiden Sosok couldn't help but laugh and said, no problem, Captain Unohana Retsu on this side has also really drawn his sword, so the battle with Kinpachi, which was slightly delayed, is about to begin. Kinpachi, battle? Tosun Kaname asked with some doubt. That's right. The captain of the 4th Division, Unohana Retsu, who is the strongest in the Kido and medical skills of the Seireitei, is the first captain of the 11th Division, the greatest villain in Soul Society, the first Kinpachi who is said to have mastered all the sword styles and is therefore known as the Rai. Aiden Sosok answered. What? Tosun Kaname said in shock. If it weren't for his extreme trust and loyalty to Aiden Sosok, Tosun Kaname would almost instinctively doubt the authenticity of this statement. After all, no one could connect the captain of Unohana Retsu, who had a gentle and elegant voice, with an unprecedented villain. Since Captain Unohana is the first Kinpachi, how could he become the captain of the 4th Division, and I have never heard of Captain Unohana drawing a sword to fight. Tosun Kaname asked in confusion. Because of this, a great villain who used to find pleasure and meaning in killing and fighting every day, after enduring for 1,000 years, draws his sword to fight again. How terrifying will the killing intent that erupts really make me look forward to it, Aiden Sosok pushed his glasses and said. As for Zaraki Kinpachi, this beast was born to fight. According to the records of the Great Spirit Library, he was the one who injured Unohana Retsu 1,000 years ago, causing Unohana Retsu to abdicate from the 11th Division. So, this will be a Kinpachi battle that spans 1,000 years. According to the rules set by the Central 46th Chamber, one Kinpachi should die. Tosun nodded in agreement, but a somewhat ridiculous idea inexplicably popped up in his mind. Lord Aizen deliberately provoked this Kinpachi battle, couldn't it be for Senju Cheng? In order to destroy the gentle and elegant image of Unohana Retsu in front of Senju Cheng, so that Senju Cheng would stay away from Unohana Retsu. Or maybe he was trying to push Kinpachi Zaraki to kill Unohana Retsu directly, so as to cause a deep rift between Makoto Senju, who valued Unohana Retsu, and Seireitei. More importantly, Tosun Kaname knew very well that the reason why there was a theory that there is only one Kinpachi in each era was that the Central 46 Chambers were secretly pushing the Kinpachi to fight each other to win the next captain position. This was to avoid too many Kinpachis being crowned as the strongest swordsman, and most of the Kinpachis were crazy people who loved fighting and ignored the rules and the aristocracy. Therefore, as long as Makoto Senju knew the truth, he might resent the aristocracy of Soul Society. At this moment, in the 4th Division's barracks, the terrifying blood-colored spiritual pressure was almost like a sea of blood and corpses, filling the entire courtyard. A considerable number of ordinary 4th Division members fell into coma due to the unbearable situation. Even the chief officer and the vice captains felt that they could not breathe. No, to be more precise, they dared not breathe at all under the terrifying murderous intent that naturally permeated, for fear of attracting the attention of that monster. Yes, it was simply a monster. Unohana Retsu was standing in the center of the courtyard at this moment. Her aura was completely different from her gentle and elegant past. Her braids tied in front of her chest were spread out, and her soft hair covered most of her face. And in the gap between her hair, her eyes were slightly drooping, revealing endless murderous intent. At this moment, Fen's Kalushura was scratched on the back by Shifu Yuan Yorishi, and he had already entered the hollow state uncontrollably. At this point, 5 captains were hollowed, and only Kachika Jinran and Kakushansui were still normal. However, Kachika Jinran was extremely old, and even her spirit had reached the point where she was forced to abdicate. Kakushansui alone could not hold back 5 captains who had become hollow. Unohana Retsu was forced to be at the forefront of the battle, which was almost like putting a person who had been hungry for 1,000 years in a pile of delicious food with a strong and tempting aroma, constantly challenging Unohana Retsu's sanity. Finally, for a moment, Unohana Retsu seemed to have an illusion that all the Shinigami around him had completely become hollow, and he was the only one left who could fight recklessly. Subconsciously, following his instinct, Unohana Retsu drew his sword. The familiarity and impulse that spanned 1,000 years made Unohana Retsu's spiritual pressure burst out almost uncontrollably, and even the braids on his chest were scattered. Kill, you can satisfy me a little bit with death again. At this moment, although Unohana Retsu's sight returned to reality, as he really drew his sword, the murderous intent in his heart could no longer be suppressed. With only a trace of rationality left, he looked past the weak Shinigami around him and turned his gaze towards the captains who were emitting a murderous aura and had entered the hollow state. The next moment, Unohana Retsu's figure flashed and instantly appeared in front of Ikawaradu, the captain of the hollow 7th Division. The zanpakutō in Unohana Retsu's hand was like the most wonderful and accurate incarnation of killing in the world, and it pierced Ikawarabu's head with one blow. Chapter 127. How about feeling the teacher's love? The trajectory of the sword swing was impossible to see clearly. Even without releasing the initial release, the spiritual pressure was almost overwhelming and crushed the hollowed-out Ikawaradu, whose spiritual pressure was far higher than that of ordinary captains. How terrifying is this? With just such a casual sword, the current captain of the 7th Division, Ikawaradu, was directly killed. Although Kakushansui was mentally prepared for this, he still instinctively felt cold all over after witnessing this extremely powerful impact up close. This is also the most basic instinct of life, the most basic instinct for the terrifying existence that can easily kill oneself. As if feeling the threat from Unohana Retsu at this moment, Fen's Kalushura, Shifu Yuan Yorishi, Hirako Mako, and Road Guru Meikensei, who were already in a state of unconsciousness, abandoned their original opponents and directly besieged Unohana Retsu. However, facing the captains whose spiritual pressure and spiritual body strength had greatly increased in the hollow state, Unohana Retsu's face cracked into a satisfied and crazy smile. Keep pleasing me. The next moment, Unohana Retsu collided with 4 hollow captains, and the terrifying spiritual pressure surged wildly in all directions. Witnessing this scene, Kakushansui, who had no idea how much of Unohana Retsu's sanity could be retained in this state, waved his hand decisively and shouted to the other Shinigami in the courtyard behind him. Take the injured and follow me and Captain Kachika to evacuate here. Then, Kakushansui did not hold back at all, and he and Kachika Jinran burst out with all their strength to repel the other hollow chiefs or vice captains, and quickly led the surviving Shinigami to the direction of the location of the large group of ghosts outside the barrier. In just a short moment, Kakushansui had just led the other Shinigami out of the edge of the courtyard when he sensed the spiritual pressure of the 4 hollow captains who besieged Unohana Retsu, and one of the spiritual pressures was rapidly weakening. Very strong. There was no need to worry about whether Captain Unohana could win. Instead, what needed to be worried about was how long the 4 hollowed captains could hold out under Captain Unohana's sword, or would Captain Unohana be injured by Shifu and Yorishi? Once Captain Unohana also entered that strange hollowed state, it was likely that even if Mr. Yamamoto released his Bankai, he might not be able to subdue Captain Unohana. At this moment, although Kakushansui had great confidence in Unohana Retsu's strength and believed that the hollowed Shifu and Yorishi was unlikely to injure Unohana Retsu through instinctive actions, he still felt a little regretful and worried about the possibility. However, the situation was too critical at the time, and there was no time for Kakushansui to think slowly. And at this moment, Makoto Senju, who had rushed to the edge of the battlefield, saw Road Guru Meikensei, who was almost cut in half by Unohana Retsu. Moreover, despite being besieged by many hollowed captains at the same time, Unohana Retsu seemed to be getting more and more excited, swinging his zanpakutō continuously, and seemed to be muttering something. Yes, that's it, give me more fighting and joy. It's been a long time since I last felt this wonderful. The so-called hollowization should not be just this level. Hurry up and become hollow completely. In the end, Unohana seemed to have begun to be dissatisfied with this level of fighting. The zanpakutō in his hand no longer slashed directly at the vital points, but instead began to cut the fragments of the hollow captains, trying to further stimulate those hollow captains to complete hollowization. In fact, some injuries were so severe that even the hollow's unique high-speed regeneration could not heal the injuries, but Unohana actually used Kido to treat the hollow captains. It was completely the behavior of a madman. Seeing the Unohana in front of him who looked extremely unfamiliar, Senju Cheng could not help but stand there in a daze. Even though Senju Cheng also knew that Unohana was once the first-generation Kenpachi, the huge contrast still made Senju Cheng unable to react. However, from the microscopic perspective of the spirit particle, if the spirit of Unohana in the past was like a budding flower, then the spirit of Unohana at this moment was almost completely immersed in the blood-colored spiritual pressure, just like a red flower emitting a strong blood-colored mist and blooming to its fullest. It was both bloody and terrifying, and extremely beautiful and delicate. The next moment, Senju Cheng's pupils shrank, and Unohana, who had completely cut off the limbs of the 4 hollow captains and was waiting for them to regenerate, suddenly appeared in front of Senju Cheng. Unohana's zanpakutō was only a finger away from Senju Cheng. So it's Cheng. Unohana's eyes were completely devoid of the gentleness and elegance of the past. Instead, even towards Senju Cheng, they were completely indifferent and murderous. However, before Senju Cheng could feel happy that Unohana could still communicate, Unohana tilted her head slightly, and the next sentence she said made Senju Cheng's heart tighten. Since we have already gone to Iahoshino, then let's fight with the teacher and satisfy the teacher. Then, Unohana lowered his eyes, looked at the empty waist of Senju Cheng, and asked, "Where is your sword, Senju Cheng?" Senju Cheng swallowed his saliva, and inexplicably felt that it seemed to be a wrong choice for him to rush into the battlefield of Unohana at this moment. "Teacher, your state." "Ah? My state?" Unohana suddenly took a step forward and got completely close to Senju Cheng, and the zanpakutō also circled around and completely stuck to Senju Cheng's neck. For a moment, the chill of the zanpakutō, the warmth of Unohana body, and the murderous intent that rushed straight into the soul, as if the bloody smell of being in a sea of blood, intertwined in Senju Cheng's senses. "Death, life, fighting, love, Unohana said softly in Senju Cheng's ear with an extremely cold tone. This is the truest form of the teacher. The Unohana that you know, admire and look up to did not exist from the beginning. It's a pity that it seems to have given you some kind of illusion, but it doesn't matter. I will change your wrong feeling now, with my own hands." Unohana voice paused slightly, and with his slightly drooping eyes, he looked sideways at Senju Cheng's eyes, and said with murderous intent without any concealment, "How about chopping my most beloved disciple into pieces with your own hands, and feeling the most real love from the depths of the teacher's heart?" However, at this moment, Unohana suddenly felt something wrapped around his back, and then Senju Cheng, who was only slightly close to him, completely stuck to him. Unohana Chapter 128. Unohana Yaharu. Since I became conscious 1,000 years ago, I have nothing but the name of Unohana and the zanpakutō in my hand. This boring world, this dead world, this fake world, nothing can make me happy except killing and blood, fighting, fighting, fighting. I don't know how much I have killed, just like no one will remember how much air they have breathed. Just like breathing air is a way to maintain life, killing is just a way for me to maintain myself, please myself, and find myself. I was named Yakatsukura and was feared, terrified, and worshipped by the world. But even if I mastered all the Kendo schools in Soul Society, this world seemed to be even more boring, dead, and fake, until the appearance of Yamamoto Shichikuni, who was very strong. Stronger than any opponent in the past, I was defeated, not because of the Kendo, but because of his insoluble and extremely hot hellfire. It seems to be fine this way. Yuka, after all, she can't avoid the fate of withering under the scorching sun, no matter how much blood she is watered with. However, he didn't seem to want to take my life. Instead, he made an interesting promise, inviting me to join the organization called Gotti 13 as the captain to fight against the Stern-Crossed Knights. A bunch of scum, weak bodies, flawed fighting skills, ridiculous ability to control spirit particles. Only the blood made me feel a little happy for a moment, but the world seems to be even more boring. According to the agreement, companions cannot be slaughtered in the Seireitei. Oh, if those weak people can be called companions. Since I am the loser, I have nothing to say. At least I will abide by this agreement before Yamamoto Shizukuni is still alive. However, if I try harder in Rukongei, there may be an opponent who will make me a little happy, right? Finally, an interesting opponent appeared. It was a natural beast. Although I won in the end, the beast also left scars on my body. Unfortunately, it seems that he still has strength that he has not been able to use. Although I brutally killed him for a long time, this unconscious beast still failed to use all its hidden potential. Enjoyable, but also disappointing. However, this is undoubtedly the most enjoyable head-on fight so far. This beast may really kill me in a head-on duel, and thoroughly enjoy the pleasure of death. Then, let's wait a little. Before that, I decided not to draw my sword, and nurture the accumulated killing intent, waiting for the day to come. In this way, 1,000 years have passed. The beast finally found the Seireitei and took the name Kinpachi. However, the beast seems to have become weaker than before, so there is no point in killing it. Is this kid called Senju Cheng? It seems to be a good kid. In order to avoid no one to inherit the position of captain of the 4th Division in the future, it is better to train him well. Cheng, it seems that he is much better than I thought, with a kind and gentle heart, and superb medical skills. However, he seems to have the idea of deceiving his teacher sometimes, and needs to be disciplined. He seems to be a ridiculous and childish kid, but he actually wants to protect me. Am I so weak? It is really an insulting anger, and a strange joy. Apart from fighting and killing, it is rare for him to have waves in his heart. But he is so bold. Cheng, how dare he have countless sinful thoughts that offend me? As expected, I should find a reason to kill this disciple. Such a slippery kid, he doesn't let me catch any handle at all. It seems that Cheng has been pretending in the past. This is not the reaction of an innocent boy. Isn't it also false that he doesn't like fighting? Let Shifu Yuan or Ishi teach him a lesson. Hectares, fighting for the teacher. Cheng, do you think this reason can really make me happy? Will I really be happy about it? Birthday party, forest of urine. What is that strange feeling? Always accompany Rahana. What do you think you know? Who do you think you are conveying this feeling to? You don't understand anything at all, Cheng. The Rahana Retsu in front of you was fake from the beginning, and what you want to protect did not exist from the beginning. My name is Rahana Yarai. I'm a fighter, a great villain, and the embodiment of all hell. No, I can't show that side of me in front of Cheng. At that moment, I returned to the courtyard holding Mori and Dashia, and I had unprecedented panic in my heart. Why? I instinctively didn't want Cheng to know about my bloody past, and even thought about the arrival of that day, and I was hesitant. A mutation happened. What is that? The hollowness of the god of death, an interesting form, but I don't know what it will feel like to chop it. Everyone is dead, so I am allowed to draw my sword. It's such a long-lost pleasure. Yes, this is the real me. The so-called Yudeo and medical skills are just to enjoy the pleasure better and make this pleasure last a little longer. Killing the captain-level Shinigami who has become hollow can make me want to fight a little. No, it's still too weak. Is it just this extent? Cure it, and then chop it again. I think after the Shinigami becomes hollow, its vitality can be a little closer to the hollow, and it will be able to chop a little more. Wait, that's Cheng. Didn't he find a cheap excuse to go to Feng Shui Walling? Why? Why did he come back and appear here, and also witness my posture? No, it should be better this way. Cheng, witness my true appearance, then fear, and stay away from me. Cheng, the warm disciple game that I played with the weak you in the past, it's almost time to end, and Cheng, if it goes on like this, I really don't know and I will be unable to hold back. Let's end it like this. This embrace is the last. I will have a good sleep next. Afterwards, everything will be over. Makoto, however, at this moment, Makoto Senju, who should have been terrified, awed, and hesitant, actually embraced me. A warmth different from blood pressed against my whole body, and a gentle voice seemed to ring in my ears. The thought of fighting and killing filled Unohana Retsu's brain. He instinctively became conscious, opened his slightly drooping eyes, and murmured in response. What? Unohana teacher, no matter what you become, I will be like Mori and Dashia. Chapter 129. Bankai. All extinction. A tall building outside the 4th Division's barracks. Aiden Sosok looked from afar at Unohana Retsu and Senju Makatao, who seemed to be hugging each other in the direction of the courtyard. His eyes, which had always been quite calm and indifferent, changed slightly, and the invisible sense of oppression suddenly increased by 1 degree. Feeling the change in Aizen Sosok's aura, Tosun Kaname's expression tightened and asked, "Lord Aizen, did you find something unexpected?" Aizen Sosok pushed his glasses and answered calmly, "No, everything is still under control. It's just that Makatao is better than I thought. I didn't expect that Unohana Retsu could face such a terrible posture calmly." Terrible. Yes, this is a fact that Aizen Sosok has to admit. Unohana Retsu of the sword drawn is too terrible and powerful. Although Aizen Sosok claims that Zanpakutō has reached the limit of the god of death, Unohana Retsu, who has mastered all Kendo schools and is almost born for Kendo and fighting, is undoubtedly more terrible. 4 captain-level Shinigami who were in their hollow form were besieging Unohana Retsu, who had not yet released his zanpakutō. Even Aizen Sosok had to admit that he was no match for Unohana Retsu in a head-on zanpakutō duel. Moreover, Unohana Retsu had now completely released the killing intent that had been suppressed for 1,000 years. Even Aizen Sosok felt suppressed, but Senju Makatao could actually hug him without changing his expression. In a sense, this was almost like a little white sheep playing with the Wolf King. TSK, Aizen Sosok took a deep look at the direction of Unohana Retsu and Senju Makatao, continued to hold the zanpakutō Kyuka tightly in his hand, turned around and walked in the opposite direction of the 4th Division's barracks. "Let's go, Kapu." "Lord Aizen, aren't you going to continue watching? Captain Zaraki will be here soon, isn't that the long-awaited Kinpachi duel?" Tosun Kaku asked in confusion. "There is no need for that. Makatao-kun will not allow that to happen. The fact that Captain Unohana, who has been stuck to him for so long, has not yet torn him to pieces, is enough to show that Captain Unohana still retains considerable rationality." Aizen Sosok answered with a somewhat ambiguous tone, and his figure quickly disappeared into the shadows, holding his zanpakutō Kyuka and ran straight to his laboratory. "If I continue to watch, the scene I expect will not appear, but it will only waste time." Tosun Kaname was a little confused about what Aizen Sosok said. As a blind man, Tosun Kaname could not see what was happening in the direction of the 4th Division's courtyard. He could only sense how bloody and terrifying Unohana's spiritual pressure was, as if he was going to chop everything into pieces, which made people instinctively fearful. However, as a blind man with Aizen Sosok in his eyes, Tosun Kaname did not think much and followed Aizen Sosok away. It was different from what Aizen Sosok had imagined. Senju Makatao was actually panicking. However, Senju Makatao was very clear about one thing. In front of Unohana Retsu who had entered this state. If he retreated, he might die. If he was cowardly, terrified, or afraid, he would probably only get stabbed. So, Senju Makatao chose to move forward, risking his life, and closed his eyes, bravely attacking. The holy word was at least H. In this way, even if he was really stacked and had to slowly recover, he would not lose anything. More importantly, Senju Makatao, although he instinctively felt fear in front of Unohana Retsu in this state, he believed that Unohana Retsu would not kill him. Because, if he really had the pure intention to kill, he would not say so many words, perhaps because of Unohana Retsu's strong aura and good body proportions, and because he often wore a wide captain's aori, people always subconsciously felt that Unohana Retsu's image was quite tall. But in fact, Unohana Retsu's height is only 159 centimeters, which is not the tall type at all. On the contrary, Senju Makatao, who usually behaves as a well-behaved disciple in front of Unohana Retsu, is actually 181 centimeters tall, which is very close to the figure of Aizen Sosok. Therefore, in this hug, Unohana Retsu was almost completely embraced by Senju Makatao, and even his head was pressed on Senju Makatao's chest. However, the next moment, Unohana Retsu's zanpakutō pierced Senju Makatao's chest from behind and came out directly in front of Unohana Retsu. Puchi, a burst of pain drilled into Senju Makatao's consciousness, causing Senju Makatao's muscles to subconsciously tense. Unohana Retsu's eyes were slightly lowered, but he stretched out his tongue to lick the blood on the blade that pierced through Senju Makatao's chest, and said with a murderous tone, "Makatao, you have already anticipated the consequences of committing such an evil act of offending the teacher, right?" At this moment, Senju Makatao smiled sincerely, smiling at Unohana Retsu in his arms with incomparable tenderness. "What are you laughing at?" Unohana Retsu raised his head and questioned. Although Senju Cheng had some concerns before, but after Unohana Retsu stabbed him, Senju Cheng was completely sure of one thing. As the captain of the 4th Division, Unohana Retsu's achievements in Kido and medical skills are unmatched. And the knife that just stabbed Senju Cheng looked terrifying, but in fact it perfectly avoided all the vital points in Senju Cheng's body. This level of injury, let alone just one knife, even if it was stabbed 19 times, it would only be considered a minor injury, and there would not even be a need to bandage and stop the bleeding. This is enough to show, Unohana teacher's heart is in turmoil, and he has no real intention to kill him. Otherwise, Unohana teacher would not forget that she was her disciple who had been carefully taught day and night for nearly a year, and her understanding of the structure of the spirit body was no less than hers. This kind of harm, is this Unohana teacher's gentleness in this state? For a moment, Senju Cheng looked at Unohana Retsu, who was looking at him with his blood on his lips, as if he was a flower with only his mark on its petals. Senju Cheng's heart kept pounding and accelerated, and he had the urge to hit a heavy attack. However, at this moment, Unohana Retsu's murderous voice rang again. Bankai all gone. In an instant, the zanpakutō that pierced Senju Cheng's chest and the surrounding area frantically used countless blood, completely surrounding Unohana Retsu, and Senju Cheng was the center. Blood, this is a world of blood. The next moment, Unohana Retsu's zanpakutō slowly pulled out of Senju Cheng's chest. Chapter 130. Stay alive, Ching Bankai. As Unohana Retsu released his Bankai, the terrifying spiritual pressure almost shook the entire Seireitei. The Shinigami were trembling. Even the Captain General Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni, who had been in charge of the 1st Division, could no longer hold back and opened his eyes, and his figure flashed towards the direction of the 4th Division's barracks. In the entire Soul Society, probably no one knows more about how terrifying Unohana Retsu's zanpakutō Bankai all-consuming is than Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni, except for Zaraki Kinpachi, who once fought with Unohana Retsu in an unconscious state. It was an extremely simple, so simple that it should not even be called Bankai, but in the hands of the former Unohana Yarai, it was so terrifying that almost no one in the entire Soul Society could defeat it. Even Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni was able to defeat the former Unohana Retsu because he forcibly evaporated Unohana Retsu's Bankai Zanpakutō through Bankai Zanpakutō. More importantly, if Unohana Retsu simply drew his sword, Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni would not be extremely worried, and believed that Unohana Retsu could still hold on to the most basic rationality. Then, once Unohana Retsu released Bankai Zanpakutō, Unohana Retsu's nature would be completely awakened uncontrollably. As for Unohana Retsu's true inner heart, Aiden Sasuke, who had already turned around and left, also stopped in his tracks and turned his head in surprise to look at the huge blood-colored spiritual pressure rising from the 4th Division's barracks and the conspicuous blood-colored spherical space. Captain Unohana's Bankai type is actually somewhat similar to Tosen Kaname's Bankai. Aiden Sasuke witnessed the Bankai, all-seeing that was not just described on paper, and his eyes also revealed a bit of surprise. As for the barrier that originally covered the 4th Division's barracks, it was directly shattered by the terrifying spiritual pressure of Unohana Retsu at the moment when Bankai, all-seeing, was released. Quick, rebuild the barrier. What a terrible spiritual pressure, even the Captain General can't be more than this, right? This is really the spiritual pressure of Captain Unohana. Everyone, get ready, follow me to reseal. At this time, a somewhat embarrassed and exhausted figure appeared in front of the Kidmashu, and the 12th Division Captain's Adori draped behind him was stained with dirt that was difficult to wipe off. Urahara Kisuke, who rushed here at full speed, sensed the spiritual pressure in the 4th Division's barracks, breathed a sigh of relief, and spoke to the two kittens in front of him. Chief Ghost Master Wields, Vice Chief Ghost Master Ashoda Hakijin, I have a way to treat the captains who have become hollow, but I need your help, Captain Urahara. Wields and Ashoda Hakijin looked at the captain of the 12th Division, Urahara Kisuke, with a little surprise. In fact, the Ghost Masters are an independent organization from the GOTY 13. They are a subordinate organization directly under the Central 46th Office, and their status is slightly lower than that of the GOTY 13. However, even if it is an order from Captain-in-Chief Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni, they have a certain freedom to refuse. As for Urahara Kisuke, Wields and Ashoda Hakijin had only met him from a distance a few times in the past, and they didn't even have any necessary conversations. At this moment, sensing the spiritual pressure fluctuations of Shibu and Yorishi, which seemed to be getting worse and worse, Urahara Kisuke said in a hurry, Master Goran Tess, Vice Master Ashoda Okage, Please believe me, time is running out. This is the only chance to save the hollow captains, otherwise if we delay any longer, they will become real hollows. Upon hearing this, the seemingly rough-looking Goran Tess frowned, turned his head and looked at the rather fat and rounder Ashota Okage, and said, "It's quite suspicious, but the changes in the captain's spiritual pressure fluctuations are indeed quite bad. If this is the only way to rescue the captains, I think it is necessary to try. However, the order we received is to seal off the 4th Division's barracks. No hollowed Shinigami can run outside the 4th Division's barracks without permission." When he said this, Ashota Okage turned his head slightly and looked at Kikushansui, Kachika Jinrain, and Suzuchojiro, who was confirming the situation inside the 4th Division with them. "I think we can discuss it with Captain Kiku and the others, and then report to the Captain General to make a decision." However, Urahara Kisuke sensed the spiritual pressure of Shiwu Yorishi, who had almost completely turned into a hollow, gritted his teeth, and urged, "It's too late. We must immediately use the Kidden Forbidden Technique Space Transfer to transfer all the hollowed Shinigami to the captain's room of the 12th Division. Otherwise, once they are completely turned into hollows, there will be no chance." While Tess felt Urahara Kisuke's anxious heart and sincere eyes, hesitated for a moment, turned his head and said to Ashota Okage, "I believe in Captain Urasno. Ashota Kidman, please stay here and continue to carry out the mission. I will go to assist Captain Ichiban Urasno." "Forget it, I'll go with you. The hollowed Shinigami have all been transferred to the 12th Division. It's meaningless to seal it with a barrier." On the contrary, Ashota Okage looked at Urahara Kisuke with his small eyes and said, "If we two are together, we can also take care of each other." "Then hurry up." Urahara Kisuke, who was racing against time, did not care about Ashota Okage's vigilance, and quickly went to the interior of the 4th Division's barracks. Tess and Ashota Okage also quickly followed Urahara Kisuke. And at this moment, in the blood-colored space transformed by Bankai Kanjin, Unohana held his zanpakutō Kanjin horizontally, letting his zanpakutō continue to ooze out terrible blood. His eyes slightly lowered, looking at Senju Cheng in front of him, and said, "Everyone, bring the enemy into a bloody space where they will not be disturbed by others. This is the best place for a duel. It will not cause any restraint or suppression effect on the enemy. On the contrary, being in the bloody space will continuously stimulate the killing instinct in your heart and enter the most ideal and pure state of fighting, which can make the weak fight back more hysterically and the strong enjoy the battle more happily. Cheng, as a reward for your daring to provoke me, I will let you bathe in plenty of blood here and feel the truest appearance of the teacher. Don't harbor lucky thoughts. Fighting is the only way to survive here, and, Cheng, you also feel it, being in this environment. Even if the teacher wants to hold back on you, he can't do it." At the end, Unohanaretsu's eyes drooped more and more, and he even seemed not to want to look directly in the direction of Senju Cheng. His mouth opened and closed slightly, and he said silently, "Keep alive, Makatawi. If you really want to get close to me, then do your best and to stay alive. If you are really weak, the teacher can only really kill you. P.S. There are many interpretations and speculations about Unohanaretsu's Bankai all-out enchantment, but I personally think that this is Unohanaretsu's most ideal ability. It is also the way for the first Kinpachi to truly rely on Kendo to chop down everything, rather than all kinds of fancy abilities. I'm recommending a book that travels very fast. The protagonist in the book will play the roles of a plumber, a courier, a teacher, and a mourner. If you're interested, you can go and have a look." Chapter 131 Sincerity and True Face. Blood. The blood everywhere seemed to be inducing, radiating, and stimulating a certain instinct hidden in the hearts of living things, which was called fighting. Makoto Senju's breathing, almost subconsciously, became rapid, not only because of Unohanaretsu's seemingly cruel and decisive words, but more importantly, he was in all out and his surging instincts were difficult to suppress. However, the next moment, Makoto Senju only felt the figure of Unohanaretsu in front of him flash, and his throat was directly pierced by zanpakutō all out. Cough, puff, blood, splashed. Unohanaretsu, holding zanpakutō all out in one hand, had a calm look, and the beautiful jawline revealed as the braid was untied, now revealed a cold and indifferent. In addition, there was a hideous scar just below the collarbone. It was even more eye-catching. Makoto, your throat that is good at speaking is meaningless in a fight. Focus on your eyes, and draw out your zanpakutō and use your ability to heal yourself. As Unohanaretsu's cold voice sounded, the zanpakutō, Jin, was directly pulled out of Senju Makoto's throat, and the whole person gracefully retreated more than 20 meters, bringing a large amount of blood to the ground. The next moment, as Senju Cheng stepped on the ground, the grass quickly spread throughout the Jirijin space. Blood, green, reflected each other, forming a strange picture. Senju Cheng's throat also recovered quickly under the ability of Senbon Bancho. At this moment, Senju Cheng noticed some special effects in the Jirijin space. Being in the range of Jirijin's influence, not only will the spirit unconsciously become abnormally excited, but even the spirit in the spirit body is also abnormally active, which is reflected in the injury, and the speed and efficiency of recovery from injuries are significantly accelerated. All is done, really exhausting everything in oneself, until death or victory, excitement, instinct, are constantly pouring out. Instead, rationality and reason are gradually drowning. Looking at the eyes of Unohana in front of him, which are like looking at a dead person, Senju Cheng's instinct has gradually marked Unohana as an enemy. For a moment, Senju Cheng gradually understood what Unohana just said: in the all is done, there is no holding back. People are born lonely. This is the reflection of Unohana's inner heart. In loneliness, he seeks to fight to satisfy his pleasure and enrich his loneliness. This is all is done, and everything is for the purpose of conquest and killing. The giant tree began to grow wildly. It was no longer like before at Byukaya, where only a few roots extended from Senju Cheng as the center, but within the range of sight, countless spirit particles began to be forcibly taken in and manipulated by the spreading grass, and were roughly transformed into the structure of giant trees and began to grow wildly. From a distance, it was as if the grass was absorbing the blood that formed the endless space and was growing wildly. The originally lush green color was faintly covered with a layer of hazy blood. Facing all the changes around him, Unohana's slightly lowered eyes did not change at all, nor did he intend to stop, but he approached Senju Cheng step by step again. Meaningless words seemed to have lost their due meaning under Unohana's surging murderous intent and cold eyes. Countless giant trees began to entangle behind Senju Cheng and transformed into various forms. The next moment, Senju Cheng took off the glasses on his face, pinched them with his 5 fingers, and crushed them into pieces. His always gentle eyes stared at the throat that had just been repaired and was slowly approaching Unohana and spoke. Teacher, I know that caring too much about someone will only become a weakness, but as your disciple for the past year, I still can't help but admire you. Unohana paused, raised his eyes slightly, and his deep eyes seemed to reflect Senju Cheng's appearance, and he slowly spoke. Are you ready to beg for mercy, Cheng? Senju Cheng suddenly chuckled mockingly, and then said, at first, I didn't understand why. Later, I understood, because the personalities hidden in my heart are so similar to yours. As the voice fell, Senju Cheng's eyes, which had been closed for a while, opened again, and the gentleness completely dissipated, and the eyes that were almost exactly the same as Unohana's were so cold and indifferent, and revealed the urge to fight. Once, in order to obtain Bankai, Senju Cheng was tortured by Senju Cheng in countless nights in order to let Senju Cheng understand the true Shikai. Zanpakutō is the true reflection of the master's heart, desire, pursuit. For this reason, Senju Cheng has repeatedly thought about the source of Senju Cheng's personality. That cute character that is full of two-dimensional, or the embodiment of his inner love for the otaku system. Then what is the reason for Senju Cheng's countless ruthless cruel killings of himself? Until this moment, Senju Cheng really felt that his instincts that were suppressed by countless rules, morals, and ethics. What exactly is it? It comes from the warlike since ancient times. And here is no longer the original world, which also awakens a certain instinct of Senju Cheng that was originally bound by various factors. Master Cheng-ge, the phantom of Senju Cheng appeared beside Senju Cheng, and the cute expression in the past was also filled with a certain excitement, constantly conveying his meaning to Senju Cheng. Fight after being suppressed for so long, Lunjie can't wait to fight side by side with the master. Teacher, you may want me to retreat in the face of your attitude, let you and I completely draw a clear line, let me be afraid of you, but, Senju Cheng grinned a creepy smile and said, Teacher, you make me even more excited. Your posture is so beautiful that I want to conquer you completely at all costs. Unohana's slightly drooping eyes couldn't help but slightly widen. This wonderful feeling is like a murderer who has been pretending to be a normal person. In order to sever the ties between himself and his usually well-behaved and gentle disciple, he completely tore off his disguise and planned to kill his disciple in an extremely cruel way. Suddenly, he found that his disciple was actually a more perverted fighting maniac, and he was completely excited. Teacher, I'm a little rude to you now, I'm sure you can understand. As Senju Makoto's voice rang out, huge trees like an overwhelming force fell towards Unohana-retsu's position, as if to smash Unohana-retsu completely into pieces. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 132, The Real Level A. Flow. However, the next moment, countless wood chips flew everywhere. Unohana-retsu's figure with black hair emerged unscathed from it, heading straight for Senju Makoto. The giant tree that was enough to make Kachikabyukaya's zanpakutō Senbon Bancho somewhat helpless at this stage was so fragile in front of Unohana-retsu that it could not withstand a single blow. Senju Makoto was not surprised at all by this scene. Win or lose, life or death, none of them were within Senju Makoto's consideration. At this moment, under the influence of all ends, Senju Makoto only wanted to completely release his instincts, follow his instincts and truly fight Unohana-retsu with all he had. The birth of the tree world. In an instant, the giant trees that spread throughout the entire all-end space seemed to have conscious lives, and they attacked Unohana-retsu frantically from all directions. Whipping, entanglement, collision. However, facing the dense and endless attacks around him, Unohana-retsu's expression did not change at all from beginning to end. His other hand grasped a hidden sword hidden in his sleeve at some point, and like a beautiful and deadly dance, he blocked all attacks accurately and gracefully, and in the blink of an eye, he was close to Senju Makoto. The person who masters all sword styles and all slashing techniques in Soul Society, Unohana-retsu. Puff once again, Unohana-retsu pierced Senju Makoto's throat, and even the position, angle, and posture were exactly the same. Makoto, is this the only level? The combat power is close to the level of ordinary captains, and the difference between you and an ant in front of me is not much, Unohana-retsu continued to ask in a cold tone. At this moment, Senju Makoto deeply understood what the real level A flow is. If Zanpakutō is believed by countless people to rely on spiritual pressure to cut down everything, then Unohana-retsu is a person who relies on swordsmanship to cut down everything, and is even more exaggerated than Zanpakutō. After Unohana-retsu released Bankai all-in-one, Unohana-retsu's spiritual pressure itself is increased to the point of shocking the entire Seireitei. Coupled with the unparalleled level of swordsmanship, it is probably difficult for most of the so-called captain-level Shinigami to stand a second blow in front of Unohana-retsu. However, Unohana-retsu's strength made Senju Makoto, who was trapped in this special state, more excited. Injuries don't matter at all. Under the maintenance of spiritual control, as long as the heart is not completely broken and the brain is lacking to affect the ability to think, then the basic operation of the spirit body can be maintained. Under Unohana-retsu's eyes with a hint of surprise, Senju Makoto had no intention of healing his injuries at all. The giant tree form that had been continuously entangled and condensed behind him was finally completed. It was a huge Buddha statue that almost filled up half of the all-ending space, even larger than the black-robed heavenly punishment Myoko, and behind it were countless huge arms made of giant trees. Teacher, you should also taste the love from your disciples. As Senju Makoto's voice fell, hundreds, thousands, over 10,000, almost covering all of Unohana-retsu's vision, the huge wooden hands slammed down in the direction of Unohana-retsu. Boom 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 boom. Earthquake? Are you stupid? How could an earthquake in the real world appear in Soul Society? The source of the vibration is in the special space opened by Captain Unohana. It's a terrible noise. Who is Captain Unohana fighting? Not only the Kidmushu and the vice-captains and the officers were discussing it, but even Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni, Kamraku Shunsui, and Kachika Jinrin, who had already appeared in the 4th Division's barracks, also looked quite solemn. In addition to the reason for Unohana-retsu, the more important thing was that the hollowed Shinigami that were originally isolated in the 4th Division disappeared completely, along with the 2 Kidmushu. There were also traces of the forbidden technique of space transfer left nearby. The 2 Kidmushu, are they related to the mastermind behind that captain's hollowing? Kachika Jinrin guessed. On the eve of the arrival of the captain-in-chief, the 2 Kidmushu and the hollowed Shinigami all disappeared. It's really too suspicious. Kamraku Shunsui's expression was not very good. Standing on a high point in the 4th Division's barracks, staring at the all-encompassing space not far away, Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni's long beard swayed gently in the night wind, but his back was like an unchanging towering mountain without the slightest wavering, and he asked, "Have you confirmed the whereabouts of the 2 Ghost Masters with the members of the Ghost Issue?" "Confirmed," the vice-captain of the 1st Division, Suzuki, nodded and reported. "Confirmed with the 10 members of the Ghost Issue who witnessed the whereabouts of the Ghost Masters. After the barrier was broken by the spiritual pressure of Captain Unohana, the 2 Ghost Masters discussed something with each other, and then went straight to the interior of the 4th Division's barracks." Hearing this, Kakushansui frowned and asked, "Did the 2 Ghost Masters contact anyone else during this process? Maybe the Hell Butterfly passed on orders or something?" "Confirmed not," Suzuki said affirmatively. In an instant, as soon as these words came out, the faces of the 3 captains present were not very good. This statement is enough to prove that the 2 Ghost Masters acted completely according to their own will, and took away all the hollowed-out Shinigami through the Ghost Forbidden Technique space transfer, without any order from the Central 46th Room. This behavior is undoubtedly extremely suspicious. Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni narrowed his eyes and shouted in a coercive tone, "Order, immediately seal off the entire Seireitei, stop using all the gates, the 1st, 6th, 8th, and 13th Divisions immediately search for the 2 Ghost Masters in Seireitei, and look for the traces of the hollowed-out Shinigami. If they encounter resistance, they are allowed to kill them on the spot." "Yes." "In addition, all Shinigami and Ghost Masters immediately stay away from the 4th Division's barracks." At this point, both Kakushansui and Suzuki had understood what Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni meant. "Once Unohana comes out of Bankai all-in-one, I'm afraid Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni will have to personally fight Unohana, whose killing intent is hard to suppress. The most ideal consequence of the clash between the 1st Kinpachi and the Captain General would simply be the destruction of the 4th Division's barracks, and it is not impossible that the entire Seireitei and even the Soul Society would completely collapse." Chapter 133 Pleasant Fight. At this moment, inside the all-ending space, the overwhelming wooden giant palms fell towards Unohana, as if they were a raging wave that could drown everything. With Unohana as the center, countless houses collapsed, and even Unohana original courtyard was shattered in that blink of an eye. A deep pit made by countless giant palms gradually appeared. There is no doubt that Senju Cheng used spiritual control to reproduce the moves from a certain ability in his memory. The power is extremely terrifying. However, Senju Cheng looked at Unohana at the center through the countless caps in the palm shadows, but he knew that Unohana was unscathed. With his zanpakutō, all-ending and the dark sword in his other hand, Unohana only relied on his unparalleled swordsmanship to resist all attacks, and even had the strength to cut down more than 5,000 wooden giant palms. "What a monster, my beloved teacher," Senju Cheng grinned and took off the white glove he always wore on his left hand. If it is not obvious that Senju Cheng only completed the extreme spiritual body of one finger in the past, then, as Senju Cheng completed the extreme spiritual body of the entire left palm in nearly a year, even if Senju Cheng's original palm has been touted as the world's #1 claw by the Special Communication Association for Thousand Hands physicians, it is undoubtedly eclipsed by the left palm at this moment. There is no need to observe from the microscopic perspective of spirit particles. Just a rough glance, Senju Cheng's left hand seems to be the most perfect creation in the world, and there is no trace of flaws and deficiencies. The only violation is that the little finger of the left hand is missing a small section of nail. The next moment, Senju Cheng's left hand directly pressed on the wooden giant Buddha, and then completely melted into it. Suddenly, under Senju Cheng's active control, the extreme spiritual body left hand quickly decomposed into special spirit particles and transferred to the giant palms of the giant Buddha. Then, the giant palm changed its movement and clenched into a fist, with only one index finger left outside, and then, countless giant fingers poked in the direction of Unohana, with a terrifying momentum to completely pierce Unohana. Makoto, this kind of fancy, as Unohana's zanpakutō, Jin, pointed at a giant finger, the calm tone suddenly paused. It's different, if the wooden giant palm just now was not as fragile as tofu, but it was completely unable to shake Unohana, whose spiritual pressure and swordsmanship were both at the superb level of Soul Society. However, the tip of the giant finger at this moment was unimaginably hard. Bang! Originally, Unohana used his swordsmanship skills to absorb most of the impact force by defeating the giant finger, but now Unohana had to bear it completely. The beautiful spirit body sank slightly for the first time. And this was just the first finger. In Unohana slightly raised eyes, countless giant fingers followed and completely obscured Unohana vision. Boom, boom, boom. He almost poured all his will into the palm of his left hand that dispersed the state of the spirit particles, controlling the direction of each spirit particle. Unlike the other ordinary spirit particles that were temporarily under control, the part of the spirit body that Senju Cheng completed the ultimate spirit body was forever integrated into the soul that served as the anchor point and was irreplaceable. In other words, whether it was the hair bracelet on Ichimura Jin, the nails hidden in the Kuchiki family courtyard, or the hair buried in different areas of Rukongai. Unless Senju Cheng took the initiative to recover these parts that had completed the ultimate spirit body, Senju Cheng would not be able to restore the missing part of the spirit body no matter what means he used. Therefore, Senju Cheng was undoubtedly risking his own spirit by fighting in this risky way, and the collision was still going on, but soon, Unohana, with his incredibly rich combat experience, determined that only a small part of the giant fingertip had strange properties that were difficult to cut, and the rest, puff. Senju Cheng felt a pain in his throat and slowly opened his eyes. It was the familiar position, angle, and posture that pierced Senju Cheng's throat again with his zanpakutō, all in one. It was the completely unreasonable kendo ability again, as if the kendo split all the water drops in a storm, and in the blink of an eye it broke through dozens of meters and pierced Senju Cheng again. The only difference was that Unohana was a little more embarrassed and bloody. "Makao, you really make me angry." Unohana expression seemed to be getting more and more terrifying, and he licked his lips and said, "Have you been hiding this level of strength from the beginning? It seems that I am a little happy. Is there anything else?" Of course, feeling the intense pain in his throat, Senju Cheng let the blood flow out, and even showed a somewhat wanton smile, saying, "Perhaps, if the teacher is satisfied with just this level, I should be the one who feels distressed." What an arrogant statement, Makao. Hehe, teacher, don't be so arrogant. Sooner or later, I will pierce your throat in an arrogant and condescending way. Senju Cheng said without showing any weakness. "Teacher, I am looking forward to it." Once again, Unohana drew his sword and retreated, allowing the blood spray from Senju Cheng's throat to pour on his body. At this moment, it seemed like a recognition, a reward, so he was willing to bathe in the blood of the enemy he recognized. Unohana face also truly revealed a happy smile. The fight, then, began again. And outside the all-ending space at this moment, as all the Shinigami left the 4th Division's barracks under the order of Captain General Yamamoto Seireitei Shifukuni, a burly figure with a fighting spirit arrived at the 4th Division's barracks. "Unohana, is today the day for you and me to fight?" Zaraka Kinpuchi's eyes were red with excitement, and he was like a beast ready to go. However, as Zaraka Kinpuchi looked at the all-ending space that had already formed, his head couldn't help but tilt. "Wait, I'm not there yet, why?" Zaraka Kinpuchi couldn't help but fall into a moment of confusion. Could it be, wasn't the person that Unohana called out after drawing his sword me? At this moment, Zaraka Kinpuchi inexplicably felt that the fateful enemy that he had been pursuing for thousands of years was abruptly intercepted by someone. It was also like I received a message that an important person had booked a room. When I arrived, I was shocked to find that someone had already gone in and closed the door, locking Kinpuchi Zaraki out. Chapter 134 Double Bones. Are you kidding me? Kinpuchi Zaraki's eyes sharpened, revealing a wild animal smile like he was looking for prey. He raised the serrated blade of his zanpakutō and planned to chop it towards the edge of the all-ending space. This thing alone can't stop me. However, before Kinpuchi Zaraki's zanpakutō fell, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. There was a cross-shaped scar on the right side of his head, a silver-white beard fluttering under his chin, and the captain's adori draped simply on his shoulders fluttered, Yamamoto Seireitei Shifukuni. As Yamamoto Seireitei Shifukuni's eyes, full of oppression and majesty, glanced at Kinpuchi Zaraki's zanpakutō, which was less than 20 centimeters away from Yamamoto Seireitei Shifukuni's head, could not help but stop. "Captain of the 11th Division, Kinpuchi Zaraki, are you going to draw your sword against me?" "Huh." Kinpuchi Zaraki showed a rather arrogant expression, not afraid of the captain of the 13th Division of the Gotti, and asked back. "Old man, I should be the one to say this, are you going to stop me?" Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni stared at the beast who had just become the captain in front of him, and said calmly in a reprimanding tone. As the captain of the 11th Division, you should lead the team members in person at this moment and be prepared to face emergencies at any time, instead of acting alone and arbitrarily, or even trying to challenge other captains for your own selfish reasons, and putting the situation into a worse and more turbulent situation. Who cares about that kind of thing? Kinpachi Seireitei twisted his neck and said disapprovingly. Now, get out of my way. Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni stared at Kinpachi Seireitei for a moment and spoke slowly. I see, it is indeed a beast. It needs some lessons and understanding of the rules and responsibilities of the 13th Division of the Gotti. Kinpachi Seireitei gradually reacted and asked without flinching. Oh, are you going to fight me? No, it's just that as the captain-in-chief, it is necessary to explain some rules to the new captain. As Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni finished speaking, the captain's idori draped over his shoulders fell to the ground, and he stuck the crutches in his hands into the ground. His arms slowly slipped out of his sleeves, and then stretched out from his chest, completely exposing his entire upper body. It was a broken body with a large number of dense scars, a burly body with extremely knotted muscles, and a body that was filled with terrifying oppression just by showing it. At this moment, Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni's momentum completely changed. If just now, as the captain, Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni was just as majestic as a towering mountain, then at this moment, Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni was full of awe and fear, as if a volcano that was about to erupt and destroy everything. Even Seireitei Kinpachi felt the aura of Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni, and his desire to fight became more and more intense, and a trace of awe inexplicably emerged in his heart. Draw your sword, old man, I have long wanted to know what the so-called strongest god of death is. Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni's beard and hair slightly opened, and scolded. You are not worthy of me drawing your sword for a mere beast. The next moment, just as Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni's voice fell, his body rushed in front of Seireitei Kinpachi and punched Seireitei Kinpachi in the abdomen. Take this punch and remember to show me the respect you should have for the captain-in-chief, you beast. One bone boom. As Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni's fist landed on Kinpachi Seireitei's abdomen, an almost tangible circular airwave suddenly exploded, and Kinpachi Seireitei was blown away, plowing a path directly on the ground. However, Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni's figure did not pause at all. With the exquisite instant step, Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni's oppressive body caught up with the flying Kinpachi Seireitei in the blink of an eye. In Kinpachi Seireitei's confused and horrified eyes, Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni's body, which was almost parallel to him, seemed to expand invisibly, and the terrifying spiritual pressure soared into the sky, and infinite power seemed to be gathering towards his arms. Raise your zanpakutō, or don't blame me if you die, with a loud reminder from Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni. Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni's fists slammed down on Kinpachi Seireitei, who barely held his zanpakutō in front of his chest. Double bones boom. The fists fell, and a terrifying impact force exploded. Kinpachi Seireitei almost instantly sank completely into the ground, and even the ground around him was rapidly collapsing, and spiderweb-like cracks spread wildly in all directions. Seeing this scene, Sensui, who was watching the situation in the direction of the 4th Division from a distance, couldn't help but smack his lips repeatedly. Old man, this time he is really angry. Sensui inexplicably felt more sympathy for Kinpachi Seireitei. As a disciple who had followed Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni for hundreds of years, Sensui had been taught a lesson by Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni many times, but it was also rare to see Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni get angry to this extent. However, 5 captains have become hollowed out and their whereabouts are unknown. The whereabouts of the 2 Ghost Masters are a mystery, and Captain Unohana is suspected to be out of control. In addition, many vice-captains, chief officers, and ordinary team members have died or become hollowed out. It can be said that when the enemy behind all this has not been confirmed, and the combat power of the Gotti 13th Division has been reduced by more than half, Kinpachi Seireitei did not fulfill his duties as a captain, but instead ran into the muzzle of Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni's gun. How could he not arouse Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni's anger? However, when he thought of those hollowed-out captains and his lovely vice-captain Lisa Yamamara, Kumraku Sensui's mood became extremely heavy, and he frowned and thought about the details of the various changes that had taken place. Suddenly, Kamraku Shunsui thought of something, and his pupils couldn't help but shrink. Now, the entire Seireitei Shinigami have been mobilized, and in order to find their two ghost masters and many hollowed-out Shinigami as soon as possible, the old man had to mobilize the trusted 13th Division Shinigami to assist in the search. However, in this case, the defensive force of the captain of the 13th Division, Yukita Jushiro, would be, as Yukita Jushiro's classmate and close friend, Kaku Shunsui knew that Yukita Jushiro was irreplaceable to the entire Soul Society. No. Kaku Shunsui's eyes flashed, and he no longer hesitated. He ran straight to the direction of the 13th Division's barracks, intending to whack together with Yukita Jushiro no matter what, to ensure Yukita Jushiro's safety. Chapter 135 The only chance to win. At this moment, in the all-ending space, Makoto Senju has no idea how many times he has been pierced through the throat by Unohana Retsu, with the same posture, the same position, the same angle, too strong. Unohana Retsu's strength is not like those current Shinigami captains who focus on the development of their zanpakutō abilities, and most of their combat power depends on the strength of their bankai, but his own strength. He has mastered all the sword styles in Soul Society and has mastered them thoroughly. In terms of the realm of swordsmanship, Unohana Retsu is undoubtedly at the undisputed top of Soul Society. Although Makoto Senju has completely given his all, even treating Unohana Retsu as an enemy he must kill, the gap is still too big. On the contrary, Makoto Senju, every time he loses, Unohana Retsu will pierce Makoto Senju's throat once. Is this Unohana Retsu's vicious and sinister nature? Or is it an instinctive reaction during the fight? Or is it a punishment for Makoto Senju telling a lie and quietly leaving the birthday party? Is there nothing you can do? Unohana Retsu seemed to sense the gradual weakening of Senju Makoto's fighting spirit, and asked with cold and indifferent eyes, still half-lidded. I. Senju Makoto's mouth continued to ooze blood, and his left hand slowly stretched out towards Unohana Retsu. Just as Unohana Retsu was waiting for Senju Makoto to say something, Senju Makoto's eyes, which seemed to be gradually losing their spirit, suddenly changed, and his left palm suddenly grasped zanpakutō. All destruction. Stupid. Unohana Retsu's expression did not change at all after noticing Senju Makoto's intention, and he just scolded him lightly. Then, Unohana Retsu slightly turned the wrist holding the zanpakutō, and when he was about to completely crush Senju Makoto's left palm, the feedback from the zanpakutō made Unohana Retsu's expression change. It was as if zanpakutō was tightly clamped by something. Even with Unohana Retsu's spiritual pressure and spiritual body strength far superior to Senju Makoto's, he was unable to turn and pull out zanpakutō. This change was completely beyond Unohana Retsu's expectations. But this was the opportunity Senju Makoto had been waiting for from the beginning. He had not resisted countless times when Unohana Retsu pierced his throat, just to wait for this moment, the real and only chance to win. Then, Senju Makoto, without waiting for Unohana Retsu to react, held zanpakutō tightly with his left hand that had completed the extreme spirit-body transformation, and he didn't even have time to pull his throat away from the blade. Senju Makoto suddenly stepped forward towards Unohana Retsu in this posture, allowing zanpakutō to penetrate deeper into his throat, and then quickly approached Unohana Retsu in this violent way. At this moment, facing Senju Makoto who seemed to be about to get close to him, Unohana Retsu seemed to have only one choice left, that is, to abandon the sword and retreat. But for Unohana Retsu, abandoning the sword is undoubtedly equivalent to defeat. Too naive. Makoto, do you think this method will really work? Don't forget, I don't only have one hand holding the sword. The next moment, Unohana Retsu's other hand held the dark sword and stabbed directly at Senju Makoto's chest, and aimed directly at Senju Makoto's spiritual body lock, intending to force Senju Makoto back. In common sense, once the spiritual body lock is destroyed, the spiritual power will dissipate. Only in very rare cases can it be restored, so for the god of death, the destruction of the lock is almost equivalent to completely losing the power of the god of death. However, Senju Makoto's footsteps were not hesitant at all, and he even took the initiative to collide with Unohana Retsu's dark sword. Puff! Unohana Retsu's dark sword completely sank into Senju Makoto's body, and Senju Makoto was once again completely close to Unohana Retsu. Unohana Retsu. At this moment, even Unohana Retsu could not hide his shock, and looked up at Senju Makoto. However, as Unohana Retsu expected, Senju Makoto did not appear as the lock knot was broken. Instead, countless giant trees spread out from the surrounding grass, completely wrapping Unohana Retsu and Senju Makoto together. For a moment, Senju Cheng and Unohana are confined in a small space in a weird posture, leaving Unohana no room to perform the killing technique. You guy, suddenly, Unohana realized that he might have been fooled. Senju Cheng, this disciple who had behaved extremely well in the past, definitely had the ability to change his own spiritual structure. Just as Unohana, who was still in a state of fighting, instinctively thought about how to break the situation, Senju Cheng's other hand once again wrapped around Unohana back and asked gently, "Teacher, in this case, am I considered getting close to you?" Unohana cold and indifferent expression froze, and his eyes turned to look into Senju Cheng's eyes. As gentle as ever, with a hint of concern that was difficult to conceal, Unohana heart trembled slightly, and all kinds of memories between him and Senju Cheng emerged in his mind, causing him to palpitate. From the beginning, Unohana had no intention of killing Senju Cheng, no matter if it was a seemingly ruthless attack or the release of Bankai Kanjin. In addition to the fact that the desire to fight that had been suppressed in his heart for 1,000 years had completely erupted, Unohana also had the idea of taking the opportunity to cut off the vague bond between him and Senju Cheng. Cheng was just a gentle and kind doctor who was proficient in the art of Kido. Unohana, no matter what he looked like on the surface, the instinct that he yearned for and pursued fighting in his heart could not be concealed, and his ultimate fate was bound to be death in fighting. The two sides will always be parallel lines, seemingly close, but will never truly intersect. However, the development of the matter and Senju Cheng's reaction have repeatedly exceeded Unohana reaction, and even Unohana has completely fallen into the instinctive pursuit of killing. Senju Cheng actually completely bears the pressure. In the end, Senju Cheng still hugged Unohana, whose hands were stained with blood and who carried countless lives, without any hesitation. This made Unohana heart, which was sealed by countless blood, have a crack for the first time. The next moment, Unohana loosened his hands holding his zanpakutō, Jin and Danjian, hesitated for a moment, and chose to gently wrap his arms around Senju Cheng's back. The coldness and indifference on his face slowly faded away. "You are much better than I thought, Cheng." Although Unohana facial features have not changed at all, Unohana temperament has undergone a drastic change. It is a gentle and elegant feeling, and even, it seems to have a little more shyness. Cheng, did I look a little scary just now? Chapter 136 Praise the Spirit King. Shy? Although that shyness was only a flash, it was clearly caught by Senju Cheng, causing Senju Cheng's breathing to quicken subconsciously. Especially at this moment, Unohana face still had a cold and indifferent look, but her eyes gradually returned to their usual gentleness, which made Unohana in an extremely special temperament, as if ice and fire met. That shyness pushed Unohana charm to an extreme. Moreover, he was tightly pressed against Unohana, unlike the critical situation not long ago. This time, as Unohana seemed to have left the fighting state, Senju Cheng relaxed his mind, but his body unconsciously tensed up completely, and the feeling became more and more obvious. That was, what a beautiful and indescribable curve. The small body hides a great mystery, the waist is also extremely slender, praise the Soul King. It was he who created the Soul Society and allowed Unohana to be born into the world. I. Gurgle gurgle, very, gurgle gurgle gurgle. Senju Cheng wanted to say something, but the wound on his throat had expanded further due to his rough action, which undoubtedly seriously damaged his ability to speak. Blood also gushed out as Senju Cheng opened his mouth, making Senju Cheng completely unable to answer Unohana. However, as Unohana seemed to sense some changes, at this moment, silence was better than words. Senju Cheng seemed to respond to Unohana question with more direct and powerful actions, which also made Unohana originally gentle and elegant expressions differ a moment. Then, Unohana eyes narrowed slightly, and he said in a gentle tone, "Cheng, it seems that the fight just now can't completely satisfy you. You are still so energetic. Do you need me to help you relieve the urge to fight?" Senju Cheng's pupils shrank, and he had no doubt that Unohana so-called relief would be a more direct and permanent solution. At this moment, Unohana and Senju Cheng looked in the same direction. It was Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni, whose spiritual pressure was even more terrifying. In contrast, Zaraku Kinpachi's spiritual pressure was rapidly weakening. More importantly, after solving the big problem of Unohana falling into a state of fighting, Senju Makoto carefully sensed it and was shocked to sense that the forest seeds in Shifen Yuan Yorishi and Road Guru Meikensei's bodies were actually in the location of the 12th Division's barracks. Then, Senju Makoto took the initiative to untie the giant tree that bound himself and Unohana, and then pulled out the zanpakutō dark sword that Unohana had stabbed into his body. He quickly took the initiative to repair his injuries and explained some of the information he knew to Unohana. "Are you saying that all this may be done by Aizen Sasuke?" Unohana asked with a slightly frowned brow. "It's very likely," Senju Makoto nodded, and did not tell about his memories of his previous life, his own abilities, and the communication between him and Zaraki Fire. He only said that when he returned to the 4th Division's barracks for rescue, he accidentally ran into Aizen Sasuke and Tosankane, who were moving in a strange way. In fact, after witnessing Aizen Sasuke's calm demeanor, Senju Makoto had already given up hope that he could use this incident to completely let the Seireitei characterize Aizen Sasuke as a traitor. What is certain is that Aizen Sasuke must have been prepared to clear himself of all this, and it is impossible for him to leave any loopholes. Instead, Urahara Kisuke, who has never appeared, must have had something happen to him, and then Aizen Sasuke calculated him as the scapegoat. Therefore, Makoto Senju specifically told Unohana about this matter, just to make Unohana be wary of Aizen Sasuke, and Makoto Senju understood that due to his influence, Aizen Sasuke's actions also changed to a certain extent, and whether everything in the future would proceed as the original trajectory in his memory was unknown. In this case, Unohana combat power, wisdom, ability, and experience are undoubtedly a great help to Makoto Senju. Unohana thought about it, and seemed to realize something, and said, "If what you see is true, then the ability of Aizen Sasuke's zanpakutō is definitely not as he said, that is, to disturb the enemy through the random reflection of fog and water flow and make them kill each other. It is likely to be a pure illusion ability, and it is a stronger illusion than Captain Hirako's zanpakutō." After a pause, Unohana looked at Makoto Senju and said, "Speaking of which, I remember a time when Aizen Sasuke released his zanpakutō and explained his abilities in front of many captains and vice-captains at a ceremony to be promoted to vice-captain. After that, after he was promoted to vice-captain, he often personally taught many Shinigami swordsmanship and combat abilities regardless of the squad. This man may have started planning a long time ago, but all this is just a guess. Without factual basis, neither Captain General Yamamoto nor the Central 46th Office will believe it." Then, Unohana casually tied his scattered black hair into a braid and hung it in front of his chest, completely hiding the eye-catching scar under his collarbone and his exaggerated figure. At this moment, Unohana seemed to have completely recovered to his usual gentle and elegant appearance, and then he tiptoed forward, reached out and gently touched Senju Makoto's hair, and said in a warm voice, "Makoto, the 4th squad will be temporarily handed over to you for a while." Senju Makoto nodded subconsciously, then suddenly reacted and asked, "Wait, teacher, what does this mean?" Unohana did not answer Senju Makoto, but put his zanpakutō back into the scabbard and released Bankai, all-in-one. Suddenly, the bloody all-in-one space quickly dissipated, and the almost destroyed 4th Division barracks around it were also revealed. In addition, not far from Senju Makoto and Unohana, the Captain General Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni was naked with a strong and sturdy upper body, his waist-length silver beard swaying slightly in the wind, and in his hand was holding Zaraki Kenpachi, who seemed to have been beaten unconscious. "Follow me, Makoto," Unohana said gently, then hid his hands in his sleeves and walked towards the direction of Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni. Senju Makoto heard the words. Although he was confused, he still followed Unohana steps. Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni threw Kenpachi Zaraki in his hand to the ground, turned around and looked in the direction of Unohana, looking at him with a serious look. After confirming that Unohana condition was the same as usual, a trace of relief and doubt flashed in his eyes. Then, Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni's eyes turned to Senju Makoto, who was following Unohana. In the past 1,000 years, this was the only person besides Kenpachi Zaraki who walked out of the all-ending space alive. Moreover, 1,000 years ago, Kenpachi Zaraki came out lying on the verge of death, while Makoto Senju walked out standing. Chapter 137 Emergency Inauguration. As the captain of the 13th Gotti Division, Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni first had an impression of the name Senju Makoto at a captain's meeting. Kenpachi Zaraki, who rarely attended the meeting, directly applied for the transfer of Senju Makoto in advance. At the time, Unohana Retsu directly rejected King Pachizaraki with a seemingly gentle but actually unquestionable attitude. Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni would naturally pay a certain degree of attention to the newcomer that the two Kinpachis were vying for, to see if he was indeed a promising talent. Later, whether it was the loss of the souls of the residents of Rukongei or the battle with the little ghosts of the Kachika family, Makoto Senju once again entered the sight of Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni. A little ghost whose talent is slightly better than Byakuya Kachika may be worthy of important use. This was Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni's evaluation of Makoto Senju in the past. This time, Makoto Senju came out of the all-ending space in an intact manner. His many damaged death hegemony was stained with large patches of blood, which showed that Makoto Senju had experienced a bloody battle in the all-ending space and survived. Captain Yamamoto. Unohana Retsu walked in front of Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni, stood still with a calm face, and spoke. I'm sorry to have troubled the captain this time. You waited for me here. Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni turned his gaze back to Unohana Retsu, nodded slightly, and asked. Captain Unohana, after thousands of years of training, can you control your instinct to fight freely? Undoubtedly, Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni had considerable expectations for this question. As the first-generation Kinpachi, Unohana Retsu's fighting power was extremely terrifying, but even thousands of years ago, Unohana Retsu, who was immersed in the state of fighting, often went too far and lost control in battle. If Unohana Retsu can control his instinct to fight, it will undoubtedly be a great supplement to the weakening Gotti 13. Unohana Retsu will never be allowed to appear at the forefront of the battlefield as he did in the past. Unohana Retsu shook his head helplessly and replied softly. Instinct is instinct. I was able to recover this time, thanks to Senju Makoto who sacrificed his life to awaken it. Senju Makoto? Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni nodded, and looked at Senju Makoto with a little more thought. Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni naturally would not think that with Senju Makoto's spiritual pressure, which was barely at the vice-captain level, he could hold out for a long time in front of Unohana Retsu. So, is it a bond? Is it love? Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni's eyes flashed with a gleam of light, and the importance of Senju Makoto in his heart was undoubtedly raised countless times. In other words, as long as Senju Makoto is still alive, there is no need to worry that Unohana Retsu will completely fall into the killing instinct and slaughter everything frantically. At this moment, several guards from the central 46th room, whose attire was quite unfamiliar to Senju Makoto, appeared around Unohana Retsu and Senju Makoto, and they all held special ropes used to suppress spiritual pressure and bind spiritual bodies. Among them, the leading guard announced with a careful and respectful tone. Captain Unohana Retsu, the 4th Division, follows the order of the central 46th room. You are now bound and detained. Please do not resist. Wait. Senju Makoto, who had been staying beside Unohana Retsu and acting as a well-behaved disciple, seemed to be unable to bear it anymore. He stepped forward, blocked Unohana Retsu behind him, and asked angrily. Why do you want to bind and detain the teacher? This is the order of the central 46th room, and there is no doubt about it. The leading guard shouted in a simple tone. Soldier Senju Makoto of the 4th Division, are you trying to obstruct the order of the central 46th office? However, before Senju Makoto could say anything, Unohana Retsu put his hand on Senju Makoto's shoulder. Senju Makoto turned his head and looked at Unohana Retsu, only to see that Unohana Retsu's expression was extremely gentle, and then he spoke. Makoto, I'm very happy that you can protect me. But it's okay, the central 46th office just needs to see me to confirm some things, and I will be back in a month at most. Senju Makoto's eyes flickered, and he spoke. No, teacher, then I will go with you. Unohana Retsu's smile became more gentle, and he said. That won't work. The 4th Division has been destroyed like this, and someone needs to take charge of the overall situation. Repair and restore the 4th Division's dormitory as soon as possible. Then, Unohana Retsu looked at Senju Makoto's expression that seemed to want to say something, and said with a smile. Makoto, you shouldn't be so treasonous as to disobey your teacher's orders now, right? Senju Makoto hesitated for a moment, and agreed with red eyes. In fact, from the beginning, Senju Makoto knew what effect this kind of obstruction, which was more formal than real, would have, and he had no intention of being imprisoned with Unohana Retsu. However, if the central 46th room really had the brain to imprison Senju Makoto with Unohana Retsu, it would not be impossible. As the saying goes, one of the 4 irons of life is to go to jail. If you couldn't go to jail with Unohana teacher, wouldn't the relationship between the two sides soar? However, Senju Cheng knew very well that as a disciple, he still looked indifferent to Unohana Retsu's arrest at this moment. Whether in Unohana Retsu's heart or in the eyes of Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni, it was undoubtedly a very bad and unbearable performance. Therefore, whether it was for superficial work or to show his own attitude and position, Senju Cheng had to speak out to obstruct. Of course, the reason why Senju Cheng was not anxious about Unohana Retsu's arrest was that he believed that the Central 46 Chamber would not dare to do anything to Unohana Retsu, and more importantly, with the help of Ulu's Helio, Senju Cheng could grasp Unohana Retsu's situation at any time. Even if the Central 46 Chamber really intended to do something, Senju Cheng could react more effectively from the outside world. It was not until Unohana Retsu expressed his agreement that the guards carefully stepped forward to tie up Unohana Retsu's hands, suppress and seal his spiritual pressure, and take away Unohana Retsu's zanpakutō. Wait, just as Unohana Retsu was about to go to the Central 46 Chamber under the escort of the guards, Unohana Retsu paused and turned to speak to Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni. The 4th Division's Vice Captain Yamada-san's yoke has become hollow and is missing. In the name of the 4th Division's captain, I recommend the 4th Division's soldier Senju Cheng to take up the position of Vice Captain urgently. Captain-in-Chief Yamamoto agrees. Agreed. Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni nodded and turned to Senju Cheng and said, due to the urgency of the situation, Vice Captain Senju will first take up the position and perform his duties urgently. We will hold the inauguration ceremony later. Chapter 138 Atonement. However, for his rapid rise from a sergeant to a vice captain of the 4th Division, and the real power class in the 13th Division, Senju Cheng did not show any joy. Instead, he looked at Unohana Retsu with reluctance and anger as he was taken away. That look, that posture, that temperament, it was as if, teacher, take me away, teacher, don't leave me, I can't live without you, teacher. Regarding Senju Cheng's reaction full of resentment and anger towards the prestige of the Central 46 Chamber, Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni was not dissatisfied at all. Instead, he looked at Senju Cheng with a little more recognition. This kid, respecting teachers, is quite good. At this moment, in the eyes of Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni, Senju Cheng seemed to have the shadow of his vice captain, Chojiro Sparrow, who had followed him for 1,000 years. Not being happy about promotion, but serving the teacher wholeheartedly and loyally, this is a loyal act. In this case, it is no wonder the Captain Unohana was able to escape from the fighting state incredibly when Senju Cheng sacrificed his life. Perhaps it was this sincere loyalty that touched Captain Unohana. Then, Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni, who put on his Shinigami uniform again and no longer had the violent look that he had just used to beat King Seireitei unconscious, spoke with a kind look under his grey beard and eyebrows. Vice Captain Senju, don't worry. The Central 46 Chamber did this just to ensure the stability of Captain Unohana, and for the sake of the entire Soul Society. I don't understand. Unohana-sensei is so gentle, and she has been suppressing herself and sacrificing herself for the sake of the Seireitei and the Soul Society. In the end, she was suspected, and arrested. As Senju Cheng spoke, his eyes turned red again, as if he was deeply unwilling and angry about the injustice that Unohana Retsu had suffered. Could it be that Unohana-sensei can't prove himself in 1,000 years? At this moment, being questioned by Makoto Senju in such a disrespectful way, Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni felt guilty and reflected. What Vice Captain Senju said is not without some truth. Is it myself or the Central 46 Chamber being too harsh on Captain Unohana? The first-generation captain of the GOTY 13, so far there are only 2 people left, himself and Captain Unohana, let alone achievements. Captain Unohana's contribution to the GOTY 13 may not be less than his. Suddenly, Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni remembered the mountains of corpses and seas of blood that were once buried under the sword of Unohana Retsu. In fact, Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni also understands why the Central 46 Chamber is so afraid of Unohana Retsu. In the past, Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni used the Bankai Zanpakutō wantonly, causing all the moisture in the entire Soul Society to almost evaporate completely, thus causing irreparable damage. As for Unohana Retsu, he was the one who wantonly killed countless nobles like pigs and dogs. The bodies that died under Unohana Retsu's sword were enough to pile up into a mountain. He was truly an unprecedented and unparalleled villain in the tens of thousands of years of Soul Society's history. With this thought, Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni, who was almost led into a pit by Senju Makutō, instantly woke up, but his tone was still a little more gentle and caring to Senju Makutō. Vice Captain Senju, there are some things you don't know, but all this is for the stability of Soul Society, and whether it is the old man or Captain Unohana, we may have the intention of atonement for some wrong actions in the past. After a pause, Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni looked at Senju Makutō, who was still frowning, and said comforting words. Vice Captain Senju, I can guarantee you that if Captain Unohana's condition stabilizes, Unohana Retsu will be able to return to the 4th Division normally in a month at most. How about that? Senju Makutō heard this, and a little joy appeared on his face. He bowed and thanked Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni. Of course, Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni didn't care about the mere thanks. The reason why he treated Senju Makutō so gently was more because of Unohana Retsu, and he regarded Senju Makutō as his junior. Then, Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni reminded him in a serious tone. Vice Captain Senju, this turmoil is not over yet. Please organize the 4th Division to treat the wounded as soon as possible, and be ready to provide medical assistance at any time. Yes. As Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni left, Senju Makutō turned his head and looked at Yulu's Hilu, which was invisible to the others beside him. Yulu's Hilu seemed to be very sensible, and directly reported to Senju Makutō about the whereabouts of Aizen Sasuke and the hollow Shinigami in the Seireitei. It must be said that with the support of Seireitei, Yulu's Hilu was becoming more and more useful and sensible. Like now, even without Senju Makutō saying anything, Yulu's Hilu took the initiative to do what he can. As expected, it has been developed and cultivated by Seireitei for hundreds of years. It is completely different from a little fool like Sinra Wonksang. Finally, Yulu's Hilu seemed to have thought of something and added. By the way, Makutō, there is one thing you may need to pay attention to. Aizen Sasuke seems to have noticed that your spirit son remains on Zanpakutō Kyuka, so he has never sheathed Zanpakutō Kyuka and deliberately protected the blade. Senju Makutō narrowed his eyes, and also understood that he and Aizen Sasuke were probably in a weird state of open cards. Aizen Sasuke has already guessed that Senju Makutō and Seireitei can communicate, and probably know about Aizen Sasuke's various behaviors. It can be expected that Aizen Sasuke will likely place some key actions and experiments outside the Seireitei in the future. This is the disadvantage of exposing the trump card. With Aizen Sasuke's means, there are many ways to prevent it, and even use this to set traps and dig pits. However, even Senju Makutō did not expect that Aizen Sasuke could guess so much relevant information just by cracking his Zanpakutō Kyuka. This man really is underestimated no matter how much you look at him. But, you lose Hilyu, don't worry about that problem. As a doctor, how could I leave my traces in places where I shouldn't leave them? Senju Makutō took out a pair of spare plain glasses from his arms and put them on, answering calmly. Fortunately, Senju Makutō had anticipated the possibility of glasses being damaged, so when he and Hoshino went to buy glasses, he bought an extra pair in advance. It was just a pity that the damaged pair of glasses was the one Hoshino liked the most. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 139, The Lost Spirit. On the other side, Aizen Sasuke, who couldn't wait to return to the underground experimental site, directly put the mirror flower water moon on the experimental table, and used the equipment to look for traces of Senju Makutō little by little. However, no. After Aizen Sasuke scanned it back and forth several times, he could not find any abnormal spirit traces on the Zanpakutō mirror flower water moon. Disguise? Subconsciously, Aizen Sasuke had this guess in his mind. If that's the case, you underestimate me too much, Makutō-kun, however, failed. Aizen Sasuke tried many ways to destroy the spirit disguise, but still failed. Then, Aizen Sasuke verified various guesses one by one, and all of them failed. It was as if the traces of Senju Makutō's spirit had never stayed on the Zanpakutō mirror flower water moon. This is impossible. Aizen Sasuke seemed to be saying this to himself, and also seemed to be speaking to Senju Makutō from a distance. Obviously, there is one thing that can be confirmed, that is, the part that definitely belongs to Senju Makutō has been in contact with Zanpakutō Kyuka, otherwise Senju Makutō would never be able to always break the absolute hypnosis of Zanpakutō Kyuka. Could it be? Aizen Sasuke picked up zanpakutō Kyokuswitzetsu and held it horizontally in front of his eyes, staring at the Kyokuswitzetsu of the faint light flashing. Makoto-kun has quietly sneaked into my important zanpakutō Kyokuswitzetsu while I wasn't paying attention. This guess is undoubtedly extremely outrageous and incredible, but in Aizen Sasuke's opinion, this is undoubtedly the only possibility left. Makoto, how did you do it? Your ability is far more than just the wood element. This is really a difficult situation for me, Makoto. If you destroy the Mirror Flower and Water Moon, the absolute hypnosis that covers most of the GOTY 13 will be affected, even in the path I envisioned. The zanpakutō will be completely integrated with me in the end, Makoto. Is this also what you planned from the beginning? It's really a dilemma. I was tricked by you. In fact, with Aizen Sasuke's brain, Senju Makoto also understood that such a thing would certainly not be completely hidden from Aizen Sasuke, but as Aizen Sasuke said, this matter was an open conspiracy from the beginning. If the zanpakutō Shikai is destroyed, it can indeed be slowly repaired by itself, but its ability will also be severely affected for a short time. In this case, Aizen Sasuke has only two choices. Either be forced to accept the fact that Senju Makoto has cracked the Mirror Flower and Water Moon, or risk the absolute hypnosis cover and the 13th team of the court being affected and forcibly destroy the Mirror Flower and Water Moon. Of these two choices, Senju Makoto is almost certain that Aizen Sasuke will choose the former, but even if Aizen Sasuke can't stand the fact that zanpakutō Mirror Flower and Water Moon has been invisibly invaded by Senju Makoto, and chooses to directly destroy zanpakutō Mirror Flower and Water Moon to eliminate Senju Makoto's spirit, it is completely in line with Senju Makoto's wishes. In this way, it is undoubtedly the most vulnerable time for Aizen Sasuke in the Seireitei. Not to mention that Senju Makoto has exposed Aizen Sasuke's true identity and caused many captains of the 13th team of the court to take action. Even Unohana-retsu alone is enough for Aizen Sasuke to drink a pot full. As for how Senju Makoto managed to invisibly invade the interior of zanpakutō Mirror Flower and Water Moon, it is even more simple. Compared with ordinary spirit particles, the mass and density of Senju Makoto's spirit particles increased, but the volume was significantly reduced. Even if the microscopic world is a stable and static substance, there is still movement in the microscopic world. In addition, Senju Makoto can automatically control the spirit particles after the ultimate spirit body, so through some communication movements, it is not difficult to quietly invade the interior of zanpakutō Kyokuswitzetsu after a period of time. Therefore, after asking Yulu's Healy to pay special attention to Aizen Sasuke, Senju Makoto rushed to the members of the 4th Division who were gathered not far from the 4th Division's barracks. This night was undoubtedly an extremely terrifying night for the members of the 4th Division who are usually far away from the front line of the battlefield and not good at fighting. Many captains and colleagues became hollow, the usually gentle and reliable Captain Unohana-retsu went berserk, and the entire 4th Division's dawn was destroyed into ruins. This was undoubtedly a huge ups and downs that the 4th Division members, who were still immersed in that birthday party not long ago, could not accept for a long time. In addition, Captain Unohana-retsu was missing, Vice Captain Yamada-sana's yoke became hollow, and a large number of officers were either injured or hollowed. Therefore, when Makoto Senju rushed to the temporary gathering place of the remaining members of the 4th Division, almost every member of the 4th Division was pale and frightened, and some were even still grasping their hair tightly, looking terrified as if recalling something. With the appearance of Makoto Senju, the expressions of some of the Shinigami belonging to the gynecology department changed slightly. Makoto-kun. Among them, Ioki Riza, with swollen eyes, suddenly threw herself into Makoto Senju's arms and burst into tears as if venting. You are fine, I'm so glad. I thought even Makoto-kun had. Senju Makoto's eyes widened. He didn't know whether to push away Ioki Riza, the lily, or directly throw her over his shoulder to catch the 8-section brocade tie. Zankoda refused to show his innocence to Unohana-retsu and prove that he had absolutely no intention of using beastly claws against his subordinate when his teacher had just been arrested. After all, even if such a thing was to be done, it must not be done in public. The world is in chaos and morals are declining. Just listening to Ioki Riza's extremely sad cry, Senju Makoto suddenly thought of a possibility and looked at Yulu's Healy. Ioki Toyoko became a vein, her spirit body collapsed and died. Yulu's Healy answered with understanding. Hearing this, Senju Makoto, who knew Ioki Riza's life experience, couldn't help but look more sad and sympathetic. Riza Ioki lost her father in her childhood. The death of Kyoko Ioki is undoubtedly a heavy blow and injury to Riza Ioki. For a moment, Makoto Senju couldn't help but recall the care that Rizuoki took on the details of her life, such as bento, tea, hygiene, although, as the president of the Special Communication Association for the Attack of Dr. Senju, Rizuoki has repeatedly sold Makoto Senju's beauty to satisfy Lily's desires, which makes Makoto Senju a little dissatisfied. But, it's okay, everything is over. Makoto Senju gently patted Rizuoki's back with one hand in a fatherly tone, and soothed Rizuoki's heart in a gentle voice. Chapter 140. 4th Division Vice Captain Senju Makoto. Feeling the tenderness of Senju Makoto, Aokirizu couldn't help but hold Senju Makoto's palms more tightly, crying and saying, Makoto-kun, mother, she. Senju Makoto continued to pat Aokirizu's back gently, repeating in a warm voice. It's okay, it's alright, I can't do anything, I can't resist the enemy, I can't heal mother, and I can't even relieve mother's pain, Woo-hoo. Gradually, Senju Makoto felt that his chest was a little more moist, and Senju Makoto couldn't say my condolences, the dead are gone, the living are gone, look forward to it, etc. Putting himself in the shoes of Senju Makoto himself, when he was so sad, he probably only felt that it was more like a sarcastic remark, and even carried the other party's mother away in anger, and then see if the other party could say such words. So, at this moment, what Aokirizu needed was perhaps just a hug to vent her inner sadness. However, after learning of Kyoko-Yoki's death, Makoto Senju also felt a little more desolate. After all, in the department, Kyoko-Yoki took extra care of Makoto Senju. Makoto Senju often encountered confusion in the way of Kaju and medical skills, and often asked Kyoko-Yoki for advice. Sometimes, he would even consult with her for nearly an hour or two, and Kyoko-Yoki would always answer his questions without getting tired of it. It can be said that in the past year, Makoto Senju's rapid progress in the way of Kaju and medical skills may be completely inseparable from Unohana Retsu's nighttime guidance, but Kyoko-Yoki was undoubtedly helpful. Then, Makoto Senju looked around at the members of the 4th squad who were looking over, and found that almost all of them were hesitant, sad, and fearful. Obviously, the other members of the 4th Division may not be like Aokirizu, who witnessed her mother's death in front of her but was powerless to do anything, but watching their past colleagues, friends, and superiors, either vanishing or dying, they also suffered a great mental shock. The atmosphere on the whole scene was almost like a layer of dark clouds. Cheer up. Suddenly, Senju Makoto, who was regarded as the disciple of Captain Unohana by many members of the 4th Division, and who was gentle in his dealings with people and his behavior, gently comforted Aokirizu with one hand, but his tone was full of excitement and sternness. Allow sadness, allow helplessness, allow fear, even though we bear the name of the god of death, it does not mean that we will not feel sadness, helplessness, and fear, but don't forget that we are a member of the 13th Division of the Court Guard. Perhaps, we, the 4th Division, do not need to participate in the battle, and only bear the name of the court guard with the responsibility of treatment, but what does such a hesitant and cowardly state look like? After a pause, Senju Makoto looked at the 4th Division members around him, whose eyes gradually became more shiny, and spoke. Now, Captain Unohana is temporarily unable to perform the captain's duties, and Vice Captain Yamada has become hollow and his whereabouts are unknown. Captain General Yamamoto appointed me to temporarily serve as the vice captain, carry your sadness and fear, and do what you should do as a member of the 4th Division. No matter what, the 4th Division will never fall down. When the last sentence was said, many members of the 4th Division were shocked. For Makoto Senju, he may have joined the 4th Division for only 1 year, and his feelings are not very deep, but in the 4th Division, which has always had a relatively low mortality rate, there are many members who have served for more than decades. For these veteran members, the sense of belonging to the 4th Division, which has been led for decades or even hundreds of years, is very strong. However, what surprised Makoto Senju was that when he heard that Vice Captain Yamada was hollow and his whereabouts were unknown, the expressions of the nearly 200 members of the 4th Division present hardly changed at all, not to mention any resistance to Makoto Senju's temporary position as Vice Captain. Makoto Senju thought about Yamada-san's yoke's style on weekdays, and seemed to understand the reason. Perhaps Yamada-san's yoke had no malice in his heart, but his poisonous style would not be able to bear not being poisonous to his subordinates. As a result, Yamada-san's yoke's reputation within the 4th Division was quite bad. After all, no one would want their immediate boss to be a guy who finds fault every day and constantly mocks you for being poisonous. So, from today on, Makoto-kun is the vice captain. What happened to Captain Unohana? Has she also been? Vice Captain Senju is right, our Division 4 will not collapse easily. Facing the questions from the members of Division 4 around him, Makoto Senju answered them one by one in a gentle and steady tone. Captain Unohana is fine, but due to some special circumstances, he temporarily needs to assist the Central 46th Office in investigating this incident, so he will need to return to the team later. I'm only serving as the Vice Captain temporarily. After Vice Captain Yamada solves the problem of the Hollow and recovers, Vice Captain Yamada will take over the team duties again. Right now, the most important issue is that Division 4 must restore normal order as soon as possible. Having said this, Makoto Senju's eyes swept over the familiar faces. Originally, the 4th Division had more than 300 regular members, excluding the group of interns at the funeral parlor. In the past year, Senju Makoto participated in the activities of the team from time to time, and basically knew the names of the members in the team, and had a general understanding of the medical skills and kido that each of them was good at. Then, Senju Makoto urgently sorted out and counted the surviving members of the 4th Division. Most of the officers were killed, and more than half of the members were also sacrificed. It is no wonder that the morale of the survivors in the 4th Division has almost reached the point of collapse. It can be said that within the entire GOTY 13 Division, the loss of personnel in the 4th Division is much more serious than that of the 12th Division. It can be said that it is seriously injured and it is probably difficult to operate normally. In the final analysis, in addition to the fact that the outbreak of the Hollow incident was in the 4th Division's barracks, there is also the reason that almost all the members of the 4th Division are weak and have very weak combat capabilities. Thinking of this, Senju Makoto had some ideas about the future focus of the 4th Division. He began to select a group of elite doctors from the 4th Division and then led by 2 chief officers to form a temporary first aid team to immediately treat the injured personnel of the other divisions. Among them, Ioki Riza, with red eyes, also asked to join the temporary first aid team. Originally, Senju Makoto was going to reject Ioki Riza's request, but feeling the strength in Ioki Riza's eyes, Senju Makoto inexplicably felt that the girl next door has grown up, and Ioki Riza seemed to have suddenly matured a lot, so he agreed. Chapter 141 Tragedy of Omida. Then, Makoto Senju personally led the remaining members of the 4th Division to quickly carry out rescue work in the 4th Division's barracks. The various departments within the 4th Division originally provided hospitalization services for the patients. This sudden hollowing incident not only caught the entire Jingling court off guard, but also completely paralyzed many hospitalized patients. And among those hospitalized patients, there are still quite a few who were unable to move, and now, the entire 4th Division's barracks have almost collapsed by more than half, and many hospitalized patients have been completely buried under the ruins. This is also the reason why Makoto Senju is anxious to organize the members of the 4th Division and then quickly carry out rescue. After all, Makoto Senju doesn't want a large number of medical deaths to occur within the 4th Division on the first day he took office as the deputy captain of the 4th Division. And my name is Omida Kichiyo, full name. Omida Nikotaro Oiman Mishobu Kichiyo. My father is Omida Kishinoshin, the vice captain of the 2nd Division of the Seireitei GOTY 13th Squadron and the captain of the Secret Mobile 2nd Squadron and the captain of the GOTY 13th Squadron. The Omida family is one of the richest nobles in the entire Seireitei. The above is enough to show that as the eldest son of the Omida family, my father is Omida Kishinoshin, I have never suffered any grievances. Until my father asked me to went to the Xing army training camp and start dieting every day to lose weight, the nightmare came. How could I, Omida Kishinoshin, bear such grievances? I immediately used my money to buy off a chief officer of the 4th Division and was comfortably hospitalized in the 4th Division. The female members of the 4th Division are so beautiful, they speak well, move gently, and the meals they prepare every day are also fragrant and sweet. Such days are almost a dream. However, all this was completely destroyed when the stern-looking vice-captain of the 4th Division, Yamada Seinazuak, found me during the ward check. With the excuse that since I'm already in the ward, it would be a pity not to cut off something, the vice-captain Yamada Seinazuak forced me to undergo various physical examinations and summarized the 3 major places on my body that had to be cut off. Then, he forced me to undergo surgery for the dignified Master Omida Kichiyo, and even injected me with a full bottle of unknown anesthetic to prevent me from resisting. When I woke up again, I felt pain in my right abdomen, and Master Omida II also felt pain. I even felt pain all over my body, and I was lying in the ward and couldn't move at all. However, just when I thought that this nightmare-like experience would soon end, and I would leave the 4th Division as long as I could get through the discharge procedures tomorrow. In the outside world, waves of terrifying spiritual pressure suddenly erupted. Boom. With a loud noise, I was completely buried in the ruins. I don't know how long it took. It's been dubbed out. It's been dubbed out. There really is someone. Vice Captain Senju's ability to sense spiritual pressure is so powerful that he can even accurately distinguish such a weak spiritual pressure buried deep in the ruins. His lower body has been bleeding. Is he injured? Quick, quick, send him to Vice Captain Senju for emergency treatment. Amidst a chaotic sound, the unconscious Omida Kichiyo regained some consciousness, and then felt as if a pair of hands were reaching out to pull at her lower body. Omida Kichiyo recalled some experiences that were still vivid in her mind, and suddenly shuddered and opened her eyes directly. What came into view was a young man who looked elegant, easygoing, gentle and calm. You, Omida Kichiyo, whose anesthetic effect had not yet completely worn off, moved his mouth a few times, but couldn't make any sound. Don't worry, it's okay. Senju Cheng, who put on a pair of white gloves again, showed Omida Kichiyo a very friendly smile and said soothingly. Omida Kichiyo, right. It's just that the wound has broken apart a little bit, and it's smashed a little bit, but it can still be used in the future. Upon hearing this, Omida Kichiyo suddenly sat up under the influence of an unknown force, looked down, and saw a bloody mess. Suddenly, he felt his eyes go black, and lay straight again. Hey, I told you not to get excited. It's okay, I'm the vice captain of the 4th Division, Senju Cheng. I'll help you fix it. Senju Cheng comforted Omida Kichiyo, and said to a team member who was assisting him. Forget it, this kind of thing is indeed inevitable to get excited. Have you found an anesthetic in the ruins? Give Omida Kichiyo a bottle. I want to help Omida Kichiyo treat it immediately. Anesthesia, anesthesia. Omida Kichiyo subconsciously pulled the corner of Senju Cheng's clothes with one hand, and spoke with difficulty. No, any more, no more. Senju Cheng frowned, looked at the wound of Omida Kichiyo again, and asked with frowning eyebrows. Are you sure? If you don't treat it in time, your physiological functions will inevitably be affected to a considerable extent in the future, and it will be difficult to fully repair it. Yes. Omida Kichiyo answered quickly. That's right, since you have come to our 4th Division, I will let you walk out intact no matter what. Senju Cheng comforted Omida Kichiyo with a gentle and confident tone, and then said to the team member beside him. Don't be stunned, didn't the patient confirm that he would be anesthetized? Ah. Yes, the 4th Division member responded, picked up the syringe in a hurry and stabbed Omida Kichiyo. In an instant, a familiar feeling was transmitted to Omida Kichiyo's body again. No, I can't do it anymore. I was completely numbed by the medicine. In the last remaining light of his sleep, Omida Kichiyo only felt that Senju Cheng seemed to be glowing with a terrifying green light, and he was holding an extremely sharp scalpel in his hand. It must be said that although Senju Cheng's tone was relaxed, Omida Kichiyo's injuries were still quite serious. In order to achieve the best repair effect, Senju Cheng chose to cut off a part of the rotten flesh, and then based on Omida Kichiyo's original spiritual body structure, he re-performed spiritual repair for Omida Kichiyo. For today's Senju Cheng, with the increasing sophistication of Udayo and medical skills, coupled with the ability of spiritual control, all injuries related to spiritual particles, Senju Cheng's healing level has reached the top level of Jinglingtang. Soon, Senju Cheng completed the treatment of Omida Kichiyo's injuries. When Senju Cheng carefully looked at his results, he found that he seemed to have repaired too much, causing the part that had just been cut off after the operation not long ago to be repaired. Forget it, let's wait until Omida Kichiyo wakes up and then cut it again. Chapter 142 The admired Senju Cheng. As for, why not just cut off Omida Kichiyo right now? Now the entire 4th Division is busy rescuing the wounded who have been dug out from the waste. Where do they have the time and energy to perform such a minor operation? Anyway, Omida Kichiyo can't run away. When he wakes up, the 4th Division will be able to restore a certain order, and then slowly arrange the operation. But, Senju Cheng looked at the fat boy Omida Kichiyo lying on the ground in front of him. Perhaps, in the future, Omida Kichiyo's strength is not the top, just the identity of the 2nd Division vice captain, but he has escaped from the captain level enemies many times, which is enough to show that Omida Kichiyo's talent may be quite good, and he has the value of integrating into the forest seed. However, letting Senju Cheng integrate into Omida Kichiyo's original wound always feels a bit disgusting and his behavior is too abnormal. So, Senju Cheng's scalpel slipped accidentally and accidentally stacked Omida Kichiyo's thigh. Ah. Senju Cheng was swaying a bit, holding his head with one hand, as if he was a little exhausted. Suddenly, the members of the 4th Division, who had screamed because the scalpel pierced Omida Kichiyo's thigh, hurriedly supported Senju Makotao and asked nervously, "Vice Captain Senju, how are you?" Senju Makotao showed a gentle and somewhat forced smile on his face, and said to the beautiful female team member who supported him, "No, it's okay, maybe the spiritual pressure and energy are overconsumed, and I just felt a little dizzy." The members of the 4th Division looked at Senju Makotao's appearance, and their eyes couldn't help but turn red. In addition to respecting and admiring Senju Makotao, they hurriedly persuaded him, "No, Vice Captain Senju, you should take a rest first. You have already provided emergency treatment for 18 patients in a row. No, the team is short of manpower now, and there is no time to rest leisurely. I can still hold on. It's okay." Senju Makotao shook his head and rejected the suggestion of the female team member without hesitation. But, seeing this, the female team member wanted to say something with a worried look on her face. Senju Makotao's tone was serious, interrupting the female team member's words, and said in a decisive tone, "This is an order, and this is also the responsibility that the vice captain of the 4th Division should bear." For a moment, many members of the 4th Division who were busy coming and going around looked at Senju Makotao with eyes full of admiration and respect. Different, Makotao is really completely different from the former Vice Captain Yamada. He will treat people gently, he will encourage everyone to move forward with a smile, and he has always been fighting on the front line. Obviously he is so weak that he is overdrawn, but he is still unwilling to take a step back. Then, Senju Makotao nodded to the female team member who was acting as a temporary assistant beside him. In the eyes of the female team member full of admiration, he squatted down again, carefully pulled out the scalpel that was stabbed in Omida Kichiyo, and then quickly treated him. Send Omida Kichiyo to the temporary walk to rest. Next, Makotao Senju gave the order while changing into a new pair of medical gloves. This busy work lasted until dawn. With the help of the location provided by Ulu's Hilu, the 4th Division finally treated all the injured patients. Makotao Senju also completely impressed all the members of the 4th Division. He personally rescued and treated more than 40 patients, which was almost 2 to 3 times the number of other officers, fully demonstrating his treatment ability that far exceeded the level of the officers. Since most of the 4th Division's barracks had collapsed into ruins, the 4th Division could only temporarily build a large number of tents throughout the night and try to find medical supplies from the ruins as much as possible. Now, Makotao Senju is treating the last patient, Kinpachi Zaraki. Yes, Kinpachi Zaraki, who was hammered unconscious by the Captain General Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni, was deliberately put last for treatment. First, Kinpachi Zaraki was not fatally injured. Even if he was really left alone, this beast would probably be able to recover some mobility after lying down for a few days. Second, the spirit of a captain-level Shinigami is completely different from the spirit of an ordinary Shinigami. Even if Makotao Senju wants to treat or repair it, the time required for treatment will be extended according to the different parts and the degree of damage. Third, there is absolutely no personal reason for Makotao Senju. Everything is for the efficiency of the overall situation. When Makotao Senju finished the treatment and walked out of the tent, a petite pink lily immediately appeared on his back and asked anxiously, "Hey, Makotao, is Shiajin okay?" Makotao Senju stretched out his hand and rubbed Yaoru Kusaka's hair, saying with a smile, "Don't worry, I deliberately left Captain Zaraki out for most of the night, waiting for him to be almost cruel." No, the spirit began to slowly recover itself, and with the treatment of the return path, the effect can reach the best level. I believe it will recover soon. Normally, Makotao Senju would not dare to ravage Yaoru Kusaka in front of Kinpachi Zaraki. But now that Kinpachi Zaraki is still in a coma, it is completely fine to be a little too harsh on Yaoru Kusaka. What's more, Makotao Senju looked at Yaoru Kusaka's face, enjoying the way his hair was being rubbed, as if he was looking at a pink cat being stroked. HMPH, Kinpachi Zaraki wants to draw his sword against my Yaoru, then don't blame me for secretly doing something back to your Yaoru, Makotao Senju thought to himself with a dark heart. However, Makotao Senju forgot that Yaoru Kusaka seemed to be unusually sensitive to certain feelings, and suddenly opened his eyes and blinked at Makotao Senju, asking cutely, "Makotao-kun, you are not thinking about something bad, are you?" Makotao Senju stunned and said with a smile, "I just think that when Yaoru grows up, he will probably not lie on my back like this." "How could that be? I really like playing with Makotao-san." Yaoru Kusaka replied sweetly. Suddenly, out of the corner of his eye, Makatao Senju saw the temporary rescue team that had gone to other divisions for medical assistance return, and he went straight to meet them, but found that their expressions were not very good. "What's wrong?" Makatao Senju asked. Before the two leading officers could speak, Iokiriza could not help but speak angrily. "Mr. Makatao, the mastermind behind the hollowification incident has been arrested by the Central 46th Office. It turned out to be the captain of the 12th Division, Kisuke Uehara, the chief at the Ghost Path, Tesmurin, and the deputy chief at the Ghost Path, Hakijin Rishoda. Many hollowification test subjects were also found in the secret research room of the captain's office of the 12th Division." Chapter 143. The decision of Central Office 46. As soon as these words came out, many members of the 4th Division who had come to welcome the return of the temporary rescue team almost all showed resentment on their faces. This time, the hollowification incident happened at Unohana Retsu's birthday party. Not to mention how much impact and damage it would cause to the reputation of the 4th Division, it led to accidents for the chief officers, vice captains and even captains of many divisions, making the 4th Division despised and hated by the other divisions from then on. More importantly, even the 4th Division suffered more than half of the casualties, and many colleagues who had been together for decades have since said goodbye. How could this not make the members of the 4th Division extremely angry? For a time, the 4th Division, which had been tired all night, was almost full of condemnation, denouncing the captain of the 12th Division, Uehara Kisuke, for his cruelty. Although Makatao Senju was busy rescuing the wounded all night, in fact, Makatao Senju always asked Uluzhi to pay attention to and inform him of the subsequent development of the entire hollowification incident. Under the order of the Captain General Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni, the interior of the Seireitei was sealed off, and 4 divisions searched the Seireitei one by one, and soon confirmed a faint trace of hollow spiritual pressure near the captain's room of the 12th Division. With the witness of the 3 captains, Kakushansui, Yukita Jashiro, and Kachika Jinrin, the secret room hidden in the captain's room of the 12th Division was forcibly opened. Inside was an underground research room, and there were a large number of Shinigami who were restrained from continuing to hollow, but wearing hollow masks on their faces. Shifu Yuan Yorishi, Fenj Kaujira, Yamada Seinazuak, Hirako Mako, Yamamara Lisa, Guru Makenishi, Konami Shiro, Saruki Hiri, the above, a total of 4 captains, 4 vice captains, and a considerable amount of residual spiritual pressure after the chief officer's hollow. This shows that Uehara Kisuke, the captain of the 12th Division, has just completed a hollow experiment, and the experimental materials are many Shinigami who have fallen into hollow. There is no doubt that this is a rare and terrible incident in the entire Soul Society in the past 1,000 years, affecting 6 captains and 2 ghost masters. Moreover, under the ability of Aizen Sasuke's zanpakutō, Kukasuijetsu, all the words of Uehara Kisuke's defense were just silence in the eyes of the other Shinigami. Arrest. Under the furious order of the Captain General Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni, Uehara Kisuke, Wellington and Rishoda Bokujin were arrested on the spot, and the Central 46th Room also found the records and traces of the hollowization experiment research that lasted for nearly a year in this underground research room. All of this, almost completely became the ironclad evidence of Uehara Kisuke's conviction. However, in order to avoid omissions and mistakes, Senju Makatao still asked the temporary rescue team about the whole incident. Then, Senju Makatao, as the vice captain of the 4th Division, publicly rebuked Uehara Kisuke's extremely bad behavior, and said frankly that he believed that the Central 46th Room would also strictly judge Uehara Kisuke and work hard to treat the hollow Shinigami. It has to be said that these words touched the hearts of the members of the 4th Division. Even if the Central 46th Chamber was present, they would certainly appreciate Senju Makatao's straight bout, which was completely worthy at the title of the model light of the GOTY 13th Division. However, the decisions from the top are often completely different from the ideas of the GOTY 13th Division. Perhaps, the final conviction and punishment of Uehara Kisuke has not yet been confirmed, but Senju Makatao knows that for those Shinigami who have become hollow, the Central 46th Chamber has almost unanimously passed a decision: purification. In essence, all the Shinigami who have become hollow are concentrated and eliminated. What is more hateful than a mortal enemy? It is undoubtedly a heresy. Obviously, in the eyes of the Central 46th Chamber, the Shinigami who have become hollow are outright heretics, heretics that will shake the superstructure of Soul Society. Although, Senju Makatao had long guessed the emergence of this decision from his memories of his previous life. However, listening to Yu Lu's discussion within the Central 46th Chamber, whether intentionally or unintentionally, Senju Cheng couldn't help but get angry. How should we deal with those hollowed Shinigami? Among them are 4 captains and 4 vice-captains. We need to handle them with caution. Do you mean to try to treat them? There is no need for that. I agree. Continuing the research and treatment of hollows will only create more hidden dangers. However, those 4 captains and 4 vice-captains have a good reputation within the Seireitei. It may cause some controversy, and Captain General Yamamoto will definitely have objections. It doesn't matter. It is completely in line with the rules to announce to the outside world that they have completely turned into hollows and to purify them according to hollow standards. Even Captain General Yamamoto has no objection. Well, the other captain-level Shinigami don't matter, but one of them is Master Shoin Yorishi. Of course, I mean Master Shoin Yorishi is not included, then try to cure Master Shoin Yorishi. This will prove that the Central 46th Chamber has tried to treat all the hollowed Shinigami, and it will also eliminate unnecessary disputes to the greatest extent. In that case, let's take a vote and purify the remaining hollowed Shinigami except Master Shoin Yorishi. Agree. How many Shinigami followed their duty and loyalty, swore to defend the Seireitei with their lives, and fought against hollows all their lives? However, the judicial body, which nominally gathered the 40 sages and 6 judges from all over Soul Society, was actually stabbing the Gotti 13 inches the back like crazy. Obviously, those hollow Shinigami were all heroes of the Seireitei, and they still had the opportunity to continue rescue and treatment, but they did not hesitate to purify them completely just because they were worried about the hidden danger of impacting the superstructure. On the contrary, Shoin Yorishi, who was also that captain, was the head of the Shoin family, one of the 4 great nobles, so he could be pardoned for treatment. It's really disgusting. Although Makoto Senju had no expectations for the Central 46th Chamber from the beginning, he couldn't help but feel a sense of grief for the 13th Gotti squad, now that his position was above the members of the Gotti 13 who came from Rukongai. If I show some ability that may threaten the Central 46th sooner or later, even if I don't take any real action, will I be directly eliminated by the Central 46th? In the final analysis, in the eyes of the Central 46th, perhaps the Gotti 13 is just a tool. On the one hand, the Central 46th relies on the Gotti 13 as a tool to maintain the safety of Soul Society. On the other hand, the Central 46th is also worried that the Gotti 13 will shape their position with a more powerful force. Chapter 144 Shifen Yuan Yushiro. Then, Makoto Senju made some simple arrangements for the members of the 4th Division, and let most of the members who had been tired all night rest first. Then, Makoto Senju just returned to his tent, looked at the bottle of forest and urine found in the Unohana courtyard, and waited quietly for something. Soon, a Kusengami appeared under Makoto Senju's tent, half-knelt and said, Makoto Senju, the deputy captain of the 4th Division, in accordance with the order of the Shifen Yuan family, invites you to go to the Shifen Yuan courtyard for treatment as soon as possible. Yes. Makoto Senju agreed without any surprise. Then, Makoto Senju deliberately made himself look a little exhausted and walked out of the tent, rubbing his red eyes and asked, Shifen Yuan family? Is anyone injured or sick? Sorry, I don't know about this, but please go to the Shifen Yuan family as soon as possible, please. At the end, the Kusengami bowed his head heavily to Makoto Senju, extremely sincere. I understand. I'll leave right away. Please lead the way. Senju Makoto nodded, then quickly followed the Kusengami with a flash step, heading towards the direction of the Shifen Yuan courtyard. In fact, Senju Makoto knew very well that the person who needed treatment was Shifen Yuan Yorishi, and unlike the other hollow Shinigami who were imprisoned in prison, Shifen Yuan Yorishi had been sent back to the Shifen Yuan courtyard as an exception. Now that Unohana Retsu was temporarily detained in the quiet room by the Central 46th Chamber, Yamada-san's Yoke was in a coma after his hollow transformation, and the person with the highest level of Yudeo and medical skills in the entire Soul Society was Senju Makoto, the newly promoted vice-captain of the 4th Division. As Senju Makoto entered the Shifen Yuan courtyard, the martial law was almost visible to the naked eye, and a large number of Xing troops filled every corner of the Shifen Yuan courtyard. Obviously, as the captain of the 2nd Division and the commander-in-chief of the secret mobile force, an accident occurred, which was undoubtedly a great shame for the entire Xing army. Please come over here. Soon, under the guidance of this Xing Jun, Senju Makoto came to the most central and luxurious room in the entire courtyard. At the door stood the second squad vice captain, Omida Kiyoshi, and a very young black-skinned boy, and the black-skinned boy was faintly in the spotlight. Lord Yushiro, this is the disciple of Captain Unohana and the new fourth squad vice captain, Senju Makotao. His medical skills are also obvious tool in the Seireitei. My wife has praised the outstanding ability of Vice Captain Senju many times at home. Omida Kiyoshi bent down towards the black-skinned boy beside him, and whispered to the black-skinned boy who looked anxious but tried to maintain a calm expression. Senju Makotao listened to Omida Kiyoshi's words and understood that the black-skinned boy in front of him was Shifunuan Yushiro, the younger brother of Shifunuan Yorishi. However, the age difference between Shifunuan Yorishi and Shifunuan Yushiro is quite large, so Shifunuan Yushiro now looks about the same size of Kusaka Yarai, and is extremely young. When Shifunuan Yushiro heard the introduction of Omida Kiyoshi, his eyes lit up, and he hurried forward to salute Senju Makotao first, saying, "I have heard of the name of Dr. Senju many times from my elder sister. I am very grateful to you for coming here specially. Please treat my elder sister." Senju Makotao, who seemed to be about to return the greeting, was shocked when he heard the words, as if he was looking at an expression of disbelief, and asked, "Are you saying that this is your Rishi who needs treatment in the house?" "She is not." At this point, Senju Makotao paused, and seemed to realize something belatedly, and nodded heavily to Shifunuan Yushiro and said, "Please rest assured, Master Yorishi has taught me, and I have always respected Master Yorishi very much. I will do my best. Then I will trouble Dr. Senju." Shifunuan Yushiro had a reluctant smile on his face, pushed open the door behind him, and walked into the room with Senju Makotao. It must be said that the Shifunuan family and the Kachike family are both one of the four great nobles, but their styles are completely different. The Kachike family is more low-key and full of artistic conception, while the Shifunuan family is extremely luxurious and reveals luxury everywhere. When Senju Makotao saw Shifunuan Yorishi in the center of the room, he found that there were 4 golden pillars with strange patterns around Shifunuan Yorishi, and there were 4 seemingly slender white cloths on them that bound Shifunuan Yorishi's limbs. As if seeing Senju Makotao's doubts, Shifunuan Yushiro took the initiative to explain. "Dr. Senju, the reason why the Shiwuin family is called the Tenchi Hyojoban is because they have a large collection of various artifacts. Since my elder sister lost consciousness during her hollow transformation, one of the artifacts was used to block her movements in order to avoid any accidents, so Dr. Senju does not need to worry about safety issues." "I understand." Senju Makotao nodded, and then went forward to check on Shiwuin Yorishi. Now, Shiwuin Yorishi is obviously no longer in the bad condition of continuous hollow transformation of her spirit body. Except for a hollow mask covering her face and a spiritual pressure close to that of a hollow, Shiwuin Yorishi looks almost the same as normal. Obviously, Urahara Kisuke urgently used the Horyoku to temporarily curb the hollow transformation of the hollow Shinigami, but Shiwuin Yorishi is still in a coma, and her spiritual pressure is also very abnormal. Although Senju Makotao has not experienced hollow transformation, he also understands that the hollow transformation of a Shinigami or the transformation of a hollow Shinigami is definitely not a complete transformation into another form. In addition, in the microscopic world of spirit particles in Senju Makotao's eyes, the close observation of Shifunuan Yorishi's spirit condition was even more bizarre. "Yushiro, next, I have to examine Master Yorishi in detail," Senju Makotao said with a serious face. "Yes, Dr. Senju, please do as you please," Shifunuan Yushiro said with a somewhat anxious tone. Senju Makotao considered the words to treat the little boy and said, "Can you leave me some space? The next scene may not be suitable for a little boy." "Oh no, it's just not suitable for outsiders to be present." Shifunuan Yushiro was slightly stunned, and then, as if because he had been teased by Shifunuan Yorishi since he was a child, Shifunuan Yushiro, who was obviously a little boy, blushed and asked, "Dr. Senju, what do you mean?" Shifunuan Yushiro gestured at Shifunuan Yorishi's clothes, and his expression became more and more embarrassed and at a loss. In response, Senju Makotao pushed his glasses and nodded with a serious and upright expression. Then, Shifunuan Yushiro looked at the unconscious Shifunuan Yorishi with some distress and worry, gritted his teeth and urged, "Then Dr. Senju, please hurry up, I'm afraid that my sister's body can't withstand the erosion." Chapter 145 Not entirely correct. Bang. As the door behind him was closed, Senju Makotao's gentle expression changed, and he turned his head to look at the corner of the room and said, "Aiden Sasuke, are you so sure that I will accept the invitation to come and treat Shiwuin Yorishi?" In the corner of the room, the empty space slowly turned into a colorful stream of light and slowly dissipated. What appeared behind it was Aizen Sosok, who was wearing a black cloak that could completely isolate spiritual pressure. No matter how many times, Makoto-kun is always able to surprise people like this. Aizen Sosok clapped his hands gently, praising him gently and elegantly. Shibuya Yorishi is very young, and it is very likely that he has not yet been hit by the ability of zanpakutō Switjetsu. Aren't you worried that he will notice your existence? Senju Makoto stood up and looked at Aizen Sosok and said, as if he was warning him. Don't forget, this is the Shoin family, which is known as the heaven-given weaponry, and a large number of divine artifacts are stored here. Among them there may be artifacts that can threaten you. Not everyone is Makoto-kun. So what if it's Yushiro from the Shoin family? Aizen Sosok spoke calmly, and slowly approached Senju Makoto step by step, until they reached a distance where both of them could draw their swords and cut down each other in an instant. Let's go back to Makoto-kun's initial question. Why am I so sure that Makoto-kun is here? Isn't this destined from the beginning? The four great nobles of the behind-the-scenes manipulators of the central 46 rooms. How dare a family dog turn against its master? So Yorishi Shuin will definitely be sent back to the courtyard, and Urahara Kisuke's research on Hoyoku and holoification is far inferior to mine. Perhaps he can use the power of Hoyoku to temporarily curb the holoification process, but now further restoring the hollowed Shinigami is beyond Urahara Kisuke's current ability. Facing the unconscious Yorishi Shuin, whether the Second Division and the Shuin family use sincere invitations or coercive means, they will inevitably ask Makoto-kun, who has the most brilliant medical skills in the current Seireitei, to come and treat Yorishi Shuin. Makoto-kun is not allowed to refuse this. The arrogance in the bones of the four great nobles will not allow a mere vice-captain from Rukonge to refuse. Do you feel it? Makoto-kun, under the corrupt system, talented people have to be humiliatingly forced to submit to all kinds of arrogant and incompetent facts. Listening to Aizen Sosok's last words, Senju Makoto smiled and said, Aizen Sosok, don't say so many misleading words, otherwise I might think you are trying to seduce me. Aizen Sosok pushed his glasses and said with a calm and confident smile. Maybe? Makoto, whether you put something in the zanpakutō Switjetsu or communicated with Seireitei in an unknown way, you can confirm that I am waiting for you here. Didn't you come here? Senju Makoto heard this and couldn't help but feel a little helpless. There is no doubt that the relationship between Senju Makoto and Aizen Sosok is very close to the state of open cards. Senju Makoto used the ability of Yulu's Hellion Spirit Control to almost clearly understand Aizen Sosok's every move in the Seireitei. Aizen Sosok, based on the increasingly clear information about Senju Makoto, saw through most of the facts with pure wisdom. Aizen Sosok had hidden in Shibuya Yorishi's room in advance, and Senju Makoto knew it before he set out for Shibuya's courtyard. But, Senju Makoto still came, in addition to the fact that Senju Makoto had vaguely seen through Aizen Sosok's purpose, no matter what, Shibuya Yorishi had taught Senju Makoto, which was an indisputable fact. More importantly, Senju Makoto had always coveted the opportunity to integrate the forest seed into the bodies of those hollowed-out Shinigami, and healing Shibuya Yorishi was the best opportunity. After the battle with Unohana-Retsu, Senju Makoto was very clear about how far he was from Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni, Unohana-Retsu, Aizen Sosok, and other strong men who truly stood at the top of the Soul Society. In the all-out space, in fact, Senju Makoto had no chance to cause any substantial harm to Unohana-Retsu from beginning to end, and the whole process was completely a process in which Senju Makoto was slaughtered in various ways and his throat was pierced. Perhaps, with all his trump cards out, Senju Makoto still has some confidence in defeating ordinary captain-level Shinigami with his Shy Guy, but for those monsters that are far beyond the ordinary captain level, his ability to resist is limited to the difference between having the opportunity to shout compression belt and help a few more times. Once the forest seed is successfully integrated into the bodies of those hollow Shinigami, Senju Makoto's existing spiritual power accumulation speed can almost double, and he can begin to make preliminary attempts to absorb the spiritual power of the hollow forest seed can be integrated into the bodies of Shinigami, so that Senju Makoto can unconsciously absorb the spiritual power that Shinigami dissipate on a daily basis. However, whether he can absorb the spiritual pressure belonging to the hollow in this way, Senju Makoto has never had the opportunity to try it, and what impact it will have on him as a Shinigami, absorbing the spiritual pressure of the hollow, requires more samples to confirm. Therefore, this is undoubtedly an opportunity that Senju Makoto cannot miss, even if there are certain risks. Senju Makoto stared at Aizen Sosok in front of him and said bluntly, "Don't say those unnecessary words. You never planned to completely kill Captain Urahara from the beginning. You hoped that Captain Urahara could further develop and improve the Horyokos you designed, and try to save these Shinigami who have fallen into hollowification, right? And the premise of all this is that Captain Urahara can lead many hollowified Shinigami to escape from the central 46 chambers to the real world and get rid of the pursuit and surveillance of the Seireitei. Therefore, as the head of the Shoin family, one of the four great nobles, Shoin Yorishi is the key point of all this. Without Shoin Yorishi standing up for Captain Urahara, everything you planned would not be achieved, right? It's just that Shoin Yorishi is now in a hollowification state and unconscious. Even if you want to use Shoin Yorishi, you need a reason to make her recover. I am the reason you need to prevent Seireitei from being suspicious. As a disciple of Captain Urahara, it's not too surprising that I have the ability to temporarily wake up the hollowified Shoin Yorishi. Senju Cheng, who was unwilling to conduct unnecessary tests with a being like Aizen Sasuke, bluntly stated his guess about Aizen Sasuke and said, "Am I right?" Aizen Sasuke's mouth slightly curved, and he replied, "Unfortunately, it's not completely correct. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 146 Temporary Cooperation. Not completely correct. Aizen Sasuke's answer undoubtedly made Senju Cheng slightly startled. After all, this was the judgment that Senju Cheng inferred based on the large amount of information provided by Ulu's combined with Aizen Sasuke's style of doing things and his thoughts in the original trajectory. It is for this reason that Senju Cheng specially came to the courtyard of Shifu Yuan to meet with Aizen Sasuke. In addition to thinking that Aizen Sasuke now needs Senju Cheng to endorse Shifu Yuan Yorishi's awakening, it is also because the hollowization incident has already come to a conclusion. At this moment, if Senju Cheng is attacked or even killed, the established conclusion of the hollowization incident will undoubtedly cause the suspicion of the Seireitei. Therefore, although there are risks, the degree of danger is not high, and it is completely worth the risk. Mr. Cheng seems to think that I am too vicious. Aizen Sasuke smiled gently, looking like a modest gentleman, and said, "I'm just a normal Shinigami. Cheng-kun, you don't have to judge my thoughts so badly." Haha. In this regard, Senju Cheng had no idea how to respond to such outrageous lies except laughing. If it weren't for the casualties of the Shinigami of the entire 4th Division last night, including the 2 Ghost Masters, which directly destroyed more than half of the captain-level combat power of the Seireitei, Senju Cheng would have almost believed it. Well, just a little bit. Cheng-kun, you can believe my sincerity. If Cheng-kun has any suggestions, it's not impossible for me to consider it a little. Aizen Sasuke pushed his glasses and said with a smile. For example, the original plan was to hold your hand and force Cheng to kill Yorishi Shoin, making you the mortal enemy of the 4 nobles and the Seireitei. Another example, I used the ability of Mirror Flower and Water Moon to disguise myself as Yorishi Shoin to rescue Urahara Kisuke and his group, and then create the illusion that Yorishi Shoin died in Cheng's hands. These gentle voices made Cheng Senju's eyebrows twisted. It must be said that if Aizen Sasuke planned to do this, with the hypnotic ability of zanpakutō Mirror Flower and Water Moon for the entire Seireitei, it could really be achieved through operation. This is also the reason why Cheng Senju planned to hide from Aizen Sasuke in the past and try not to attract Aizen Sasuke's attention. I'm not afraid of the villain's strength, I'm afraid of the villain's brain. Although according to normal thinking, Cheng Senju has no reason to attack Yorishi Shoin, and Cheng Senju is out of the hypnosis of zanpakutō Mirror Flower and Water Moon, it is also easy to find various flaws to prove himself. However, with the nature of the central 46th chamber, I'm afraid that just this suspicion on Senju Cheng is enough to be a reason for execution. In short, there are countless ways to achieve the same goal for me, and I don't necessarily have to choose the best option that Cheng said. Aizen Sasuke smiled calmly and gently, then changed his tone and said, "But since Cheng wants Shoin Yorishi to be alive, it's not impossible to satisfy Cheng a little." Then, Aizen Sasuke took out a Hojoku from his arms. What Urahara Kisuke can't do, Cheng and I can cooperate with each other. It's easy to make Shoin Yorishi's hollowing completely stable. After a pause, Aizen Sasuke said, "It's just right, I also want to see Cheng's amazing attainments in the spirit body and medical skills." Senju Cheng pursed his lips and understood Aizen Sasuke's intention. Uehara Kisuke has not really delved into the research of hollowification, and Aizen Sasuke's research on hollowification is still a long way off. Therefore, Aizen Sasuke is waiting here. In addition to using Shifu Yuan Yorishi to push Uehara Kisuke to continue to improve the other hollow geek, he also intends to use Senju Makoto's ability in medicine to complete the final process of hollowification, how to make the spirit in the hollow state completely stable. The reason why I mentioned so many different options is nothing more than trying to control the dominant power. Senju Makoto glanced at the hollow geek and nodded silently to agree to this temporary cooperation. As for seizing the hollow geek, Senju Makoto has no interest in it now. Not to mention that the hollow geek is a hot potato, and whether it is Aizen Sasuke or Uehara Kisuke's hollow geek is not fully mature, it is necessary to wait until the two hollow geek are mature to a certain degree and then merge with each other. That is the real hollow geek. That is, it is a Hojoku that has the ability to make people's inner wishes develop according to their own thoughts and thus materialize them. In that case, let's begin. Senju Makoto walked to the other side of Shifu Yorishi, ensuring that Aizen Sasuke was always within his sight, and then looked at Shifu Yorishi who was now lying on the ground. At this moment, in Senju Makoto's eyes, Shifu Yorishi's spirit state can be described as strange. In Shifu Yorishi's original spirit structure and density, there are densely packed structures and spirit particle combinations belonging to hollows mixed in. No, to be more precise, it is not mixed, but it is like a lot of pebbles are forcibly stuffed into the sand. However, the god of death and the hollow, after all, they have completely different spirit structures, which leads to a serious conflict and repulsion. In the previous hollowification incident, those crazy hollowification Shinigami were equivalent to constantly stuffing various stones into their spirits, forcibly increasing the density and strength of their spirits, causing the spiritual pressure of all hollowed Shinigami to rise sharply. However, the density and strength of their spirits were not enough. Once too many stones were stuffed in, either the spirits collapsed or they became completely hollow. Perhaps, this is also that case for Shinigami below the level of chief officers. Almost within a few breaths of hollowification, the spirits of chief officers collapsed and died directly. Chief officers can delay the collapse speed to a certain extent, and vice captains can delay this time by a large margin. The captain-level Shinigami can last for an astonishingly long time. After a moment of contemplation, Makoto Senju, who had sorted out the so-called hollowification process, asked Aizen Sasuke, "Where do those hollowed parts come from?" To Makoto Senju's surprise, Aizen Sasuke explained Senju Makoto's question in a gentle and detailed manner with patience comparable to that of Unohana. "Mr. Cheng, after the death of a human in this world, the soul is called a whole. There are chains on the chest to maintain the self and the mind. Once it is devoured by obsession, it will completely lose the self and the mind. The position of the chain will form a hollow hole representing nothingness, turning into a hollow that spent its life trying to devour souls to fill its own emptiness. Then what about the god of death? What is it?" Chapter 147 The Essence of Virtualization. What are death gods? Common sense about this question emerged in Senju Makoto's mind subconsciously. The whole, when a soul is buried in soul society by dead gods, a corresponding spirit body will be automatically formed according to its own soul, thereby accommodating the soul that is at risk of becoming a hollow. It is for this reason that the residents of Rukongei do not have the chains on their chests that represent the self and the soul. However, Senju Makoto suddenly thought of another blind spot. The residents of Rukongei and the death gods seem to be no different on the surface, but there is undoubtedly a difference. "Please advise, Vice Captain Aizen," Senju Makoto asked in a good manner. Aizen Sasuke also smiled a little and responded, "You're welcome, Vice Captain Senju. The chain on the original chest of Zen has never disappeared, but it has turned into another form, that is zanpakutō. In essence, both Shinigami and hollows can be regarded as a kind of Zen, but Shinigami materialize part of the chain representing self and soul into zanpakutō, while hollows divide the chain with obsession to form hollow holes. Therefore, what Makoto-kun is confused about is that the part of hollow that appears in the process of Shinigami's hollowification is actually formed by their own souls. I just provided a little bit of inducement." Upon hearing this, Senju Makoto's eyes flashed slightly, and he suddenly understood the underlying logic of Aizen Sasuke's hollowification experiment and his attempt to evolve to the realm beyond Shinigami. In the final analysis, Shinigami and hollows are both a kind of Zen, so the path that Aizen Sasuke took through the Hojoku was to try to integrate all the characteristics of Shinigami and hollows, so as to take a step higher than Shinigami and hollows, or even completely break away from the level of Zen. Now, after Uehara Kisuke initially cupped the hollowness through the Hogyoku, although he has temporarily stopped forcibly stuffing stones into the original spirit body, there are still quite a lot of stones in the spirit body, and there is always a conflict between the two sides, which makes Shifunyu and Yorishi unable to regain consciousness. Although Unohana Retsu was completely powerless against the hollowness last night, that was because the hollowness process was not cupped and was still madly stuffing stones into the spirit body. Therefore, in a short period of time, Unohana Retsu, who cannot directly see the microscopic world of spirit particles, naturally cannot find a solution. And the difficulty of curing Shifunyu and Yorishi now is much lower than what Senju Makoto originally expected. As long as the conflict balance between the Shinigami and the hollows in the spirit body can be maintained and reconciled, the problem will be solved. Even if a part of the spirit structure space belonging to the hollow is reserved, that is, the hollow that can be controlled autonomously. Senju Makoto frowned, and used his palm, which was glowing green, to press on Yorishi Shuin's body, and then explored along Yorishi Shuin's forehead to the chest. Wait, Senju Makoto looked up at Aizen Sasuke, and said dissatisfiedly as a doctor. Vice Captain Aizen, please respect the patient's privacy and do not look directly at the treatment process. Understand? Aizen Sasuke. Makoto-kun, can you touch it directly? I can't just look at it. Then, Senju Makoto thought of something and asked. Vice Captain Aizen, you said you can help me through the Hogyoku. How do you help? Aizen Sasuke looked at Senju Makoto deeply and said. Through the power of the Hogyoku, Yorishi Shuin's spirit can be temporarily stabilized, and the structure of the hollowed spirit can be fully manifested. However, Makoto seems very confident that he can cure Yorishi Shuin without using the Hogyoku. How could that be? I'm having a headache about how to determine the hollowed part. Should I consider digging some medical equipment from the ruins of the 4th Division's barracks? It would be a great help to have the help of Vice Captain Aizen's Hogyoku. Makoto Senju also pretended not to understand the true function and power of the Hogyoku, and replied with a look of surprise. It would be great to be able to help Makoto-kun. For a moment, Makoto Senju and Aizen Sasuke seemed to trust each other, as if they believed each other's words without a doubt. Then, Aizen Sasuke enveloped Yorishi Shuin with the power of the Hogyoku, and turned around, as if he was completely following Makoto Senju's instructions to respect the privacy of patients. However, what Senju Makoto didn't know was that Aizen Sasuke could record all the changes of Shifunyu and Yorishi's spirit body through the ability of the Hogyoku, so as to get the information he wanted. Therefore, it made no difference to Aizen Sasuke whether he could watch or not watch the treatment process. However, Senju Makoto didn't care how much data Aizen Sasuke could get from this treatment that would be beneficial to the hollowification research, because Senju Makoto knew that for Aizen Sasuke, the completion of the hollowification research was only a matter of time. On the contrary, the data from this treatment accelerated the progress of the hollowification research, and it might even allow Aizen Sasuke to consume fewer experimental subjects. The reason why Aizen Sasuke turned around was purely out of Senju Makoto's protection and respect for Shifunyu and Yorishi. Senju Makoto took off Shifunyu and Yorishi's upper body clothes while thinking silently. If Yorishi knew that I took off her clothes in front of others, I'm afraid she would carry me away in a flash, right? Soon, with the sound of rustling from Aizen Sasuke's face, Shuin Yorishi was completely stripped down by Senju Makoto like a big black cat. Although Senju Makoto had no evil thoughts, he still knew all the data naturally after a casual glance. Wait, why am I so skilled in judging? Senju Makoto reflected deeply for a moment, then completely abandoned all distracting thoughts, and his eyes fell on the large number of white spots that were marked by the ability of the Hogyoku to represent the hollow structure. Especially Shuin Yorishi's skin is a wheat color close to black skin, so those white spots are quite eye-catching. Of course, even without the ability of the Hogyoku, Senju Makoto can easily distinguish the hollow part of Shuin Yorishi's spirit. Next, I have to be busy. I hope that the judgment of Uehara Kisuke and the purification of the hollowed Shinigami will be a little slower, otherwise it will be a waste of effort. Senju Makoto took out a pair of medical gloves from his arms and put them on, thinking silently. However, in a flash, Senju Makoto realized that this was a meaningless worry. Aizen Sasuke's zanpakutō Kukaswijutsu could continue to secretly influence the central 46 rooms, and there would definitely not be such a mistake. Chapter 148. The Thousand Hands Doctor is the perfect candidate. Treatment, without a doubt, this is the most tedious and complicated treatment process that Makoto Senju has ever conducted since joining the GOTY 13th Division. The hollowed parts are inserted from the anchor points that fix the spirits. Therefore, the hollowed parts that are in serious conflict with the original spirits must be eliminated one by using the way of return to ensure the integrity of the spirit of your Ishishiuin. In addition, Makoto Senju also reserved some space in a part of the spirit structure to allow the hollowed parts to be inserted into your Ishishiuin spirit. At this point, Makoto Senju also vaguely understood why the hollowed time of the hollowed Shinigami in the original trajectory was long or short. It's nothing more than a question of whether the conflict between the spirits of the hollowed Shinigami and the hollowed parts is serious or not. The more serious the conflict, the shorter the hollowed time will be. And the reason why the hollowed time can be extended through training is also very simple. After all, no matter how tight the original spirit is, the more and more hollowed parts are inserted. No matter how serious the original conflict is, it will naturally get used to it more or less. This is the same as there was no road originally, but after walking more times, a wide road will naturally appear. And, the process of helping Shifen Yuan Yorishi remove the seriously conflicting hollow parts one by one is, in a sense, very similar to cutting off a tumor, which is no less than cutting flesh from Shifen Yuan Yorishi's body bit by bit. Although, Senju Makoto has removed those hollow parts as gently as possible, the intense pain still makes Shifen Yuan Yorishi, who has fallen into a coma, hum from time to time. Sometimes high, sometimes low, and sometimes continuous. Although Aizen Sosok has no doubt that Senju Makoto is a person with low tastes, he can't help but have a thought in his mind when listening to the noisy voice. Makoto-kun, what are you doing? At the door of the room, as a pure sister control, the young Shifen Yuan Yushiro didn't think about anything else. However, when Shifen Yuan Yushiro listened to the faint voices in the house from time to time, his whole face almost wrinkled, and he wished he could suffer in place of his elder sister. Only Omita Nozomi was confused and bewildered. He looked at the house in shock with his eyes wide open, and he wished he could find a gap to crawl into and pretend to be deaf and dumb. As a secret event of the main family, Shifen Yuan family, Omita Nozomi didn't want to hear, see, or know. Finally, in the feeling that Omita Nozomi felt like a year, the door in front of him slowly opened from the inside, and Senju Makoto, who was sweating profusely and looked like he was about to collapse, appeared in front of Shifen Yuan Yushiro and Omita Nozomi. Dr. Senju, how is my elder sister? Shifen Yuan Yushiro asked impatiently without waiting for Senju Makoto to speak. Senju Makoto smiled gently and said, I have already promised Yushiro, so of course I have to cure Lady Oichi. Lady Oichi should be waking up soon, so we can go in and see her. Suddenly, Shifen Yuan Yushiro's eyes sparkled with surprise, and he subconsciously wanted to rush into the room, but he stopped abruptly. Then, Shifen Yuan Yushiro respectfully bowed to Senju Makoto and said gratefully, Yushiro will never forget the kindness of Dr. Senju. From now on, if Yushiro can help, he will do his best. It must be said that although Shifen Yuan Yoichi is the current head of the Shifen Yuan family, Shifen Yuan Yushiro is Shifen Yuan Yoichi's younger brother and the future true heir of the Shifen Yuan family. This promise is not to be underestimated. Omita Kyoshin, who was standing behind Shifen Yuan Yushiro and watching this scene, was so envious that his eyes were about to turn red. However, Senju Makoto did not show this unexpected surprise at all, but spoke gently. No need. The best gift for curing Yorishi-sama is nothing more than the smile and gratitude of Yushiro, the patient's family member. As a doctor, I have already received that kindness. Moreover, Yorishi-sama and I have a very good relationship, so there is no need to repay him. As soon as these words came out, in the eyes of Shifen Yuan Yushiro, Senju Makoto's image and status soared. If Senju Makoto had a favorability system, he might receive a lot of prompts right now. Shifen Yuan Yushiro favorability plus 20, Shifen Yuan Yushiro favorability plus 10, Shifen Yuan Yushiro favorability plus 30. Then, without waiting for Shifen Yuan Yushiro to continue speaking, Senju Makoto took Shifen Yuan Yushiro's hand, walked into the room, and said, Yushiro is probably anxious to see Master Yoichi, right? I'll take you to see Master Yoichi first. As Omita Nozomi watched Makoto Senju pulling Shoin Yushiro into the room, he was completely stunned. Shoin Yushiro, but he is the future heir of the Shoin family, the ruler of one of the four great nobles that is destined to stand above the entire Soul Society. Although Shoin Yushiro is still young and can be considered a person with delicate feelings, he still has the pride of the four great nobles that he has cultivated since childhood. Therefore, let alone outsiders, even Omita Nozomi, who has watched Shoin Yushiro grow up, dare not hold Shoin Yushiro's hand in this way as a junior. As far as Omita Nozomi knows, the only person who Shoin Yushiro allows to be so presumptuous is Shoin Yoichi. In an instant, Omida Kishin quickly raised the importance of Senju Makatao to the level second only to the Shioin family, thinking about what kind of gift should be given to please Senju Makatao in the most appropriate way. As a member of the Omida family who has followed the Shioin family countless times, Omida Kishin knows best what the Omida family's way of survival is. Anyone who is the enemy of the Shioin family is the enemy of the Omida family, and anyone who is the friend of the Shioin family is the friend of the Omida family. Could it be, Dr. Senju will become the husband of Master Yorishi and the brother-in-law of Master Yushiro? No. What about Captain Urehara, who is too close to Master Yorishi? Oh, that's right, Captain Urehara is about to be sentenced by the Central 46th Room, and Urehara Kisute dared to commit such an unforgivable crime against Master Yorishi. At this moment, Master Yorishi needs comfort the most, and Dr. Senju is the perfect candidate. Nozomi's eyes lit up, and he felt that this guess seemed not impossible at all, and he quickly picked up his golden jade belt and followed happily. P.S. Some book friends responded that the update was too late, and it was too late to go to bed after reading, so in the future I will try to update a little earlier. The above. Thank you for your support. Chapter 149. Omida Nozomi advances. Senju Makatao led Shifen Yuan Yushiro into the room. He didn't notice anything at first, until he seemed to be able to feel Shifen Yuan Yushiro's gaze. Then, Senju Makatao subconsciously glanced at Shifen Yuan Yushiro. That was undoubtedly a look of closeness, longing, and trust. Senju Makatao. This black skin shocked her. No way. Just like that, he fell. Could it be that I am not only extremely lethal and attractive to little lily-level beings, but also Shota-level beings are not immune? So, I have an extra intimacy bonus for young creatures. Senju Makatao seems to have discovered some extremely dangerous characteristics of himself. No, not quite right, Senju Makatao thought carefully. Perhaps, it is the kind of gentle appearance that is extremely easy to attract and gain trust for those who are relatively simple-minded, just like the original Tsunami Mama was fooled by the elegant and gentle Aizen Sasuke and stabbed her in the back. And the favorability is still rising. Thinking of this, Senju Makatao couldn't help but show a gentle smile to Shifen Yuan Yushiro. At this moment, Shifen Yuan Yushiro, with that gentle smile in his eyes, inexplicably felt like he was facing his elder sister Shifen Yuan Yorishi, and asked a little embarrassedly. Senator, Senju Doctor, what's the matter? No, I just think that Lady Yorishi is able to have such a caring brother, which is really enviable. Senju Makatao praised gently, and spared no effort to brush up his favorability again. How can it be Senju Doctor's reputation? Yushiro still has many shortcomings. Shifen Yuan Yushiro replied. Yushiro needs to be more confident. If I can have a brother like Yushiro, I'm afraid I will be so happy that I will wake up with a smile in my dream. In the shocked eyes of Omida Nozomi, who was following behind him, Senju Makatao said while gently rubbing the hair of the dignified Shifen Yuan Yushiro. This is how rude behavior. Lord Shifen Yuan Yushiro will definitely be angry about this, right? Just when Omida Kiyoshi was worried, he was extremely surprised to find that Shifen Yuan Yushiro's face actually revealed a happy and satisfied expression of a little black cat being stroked. Senator, Dr. Senju, if you don't mind. No, if you don't mind, I can. Shifen Yuan Yushiro's mouth moved a few times, and he felt quite a bit of ambiguity in his heart, but just when he was about to make a request. Ahem. Shifen Yuan Yorishi's voice suddenly sounded, causing Shifen Yuan Yushiro's body to tremble suddenly, as if a little kitten who was caught stealing fish had a stress reaction. In Shifen Yuan Yorishi's speechless and confused eyes, Shifen Yuan Yushiro hid behind Senju Makatao all of a sudden. Shifen Yuan Yorishi. Is this still my brother Shifen Yuan Yushiro, who is obsessed with his sister? Immediately, Shifen Yuan Yushiro, who had reacted, quickly got out from behind Senju Makatao, and said to Shifen Yuan Yorishi with surprise and joy. Sister, that's great. Fortunately, Dr. Senju helped you with the treatment. You must thank Dr. Senju very much. Shifen Yuan Yorishi. This, Yushiro should be happy for my recovery, right? But why did he mention me once in this sentence, but mention Senju Makatao twice? Thinking of this, Shifen Yuan Yorishi looked at Senju Makatao with a bit more unkindness, as if this was a bastard who came to steal his brother. Although, Shifen Yuan Yorishi usually felt a little annoying for Shifen Yuan Yushiro, who was obsessed with his sister. But when Shifen Yuan Yushiro expressed this degree of kindness and closeness to another guy, Shifu Yuan Yorishi still felt a little jealous. Senju Cheng, who was sandwiched between Shifu Yuan Yorishi and Shifu Yuan Yushiro, felt the change in the atmosphere, and left the space to the two siblings without hesitation, and stepped aside. At this time, Omida Nozomi rubbed his palms, and his plump face was filled with a kind of flattering smile, and said, "Vice Captain Senju, I haven't seen you for a long time. It's an honor to meet you today." In an instant, Senju Cheng smelled a breath called licking and looked at Omida Nozomi with some surprise. You know, the Omida family is not some low-level or middle-level nobles. Although not as good as the four nobles in Seoul society, it is also one of the nobles second only to the four nobles, and the Omida family is also famous for its wealth, with industries spread all over the Seireitei and Rue Cheng-ge. Such a noble, so deliberately flattering? Is there something to ask for? Senju Cheng remained vigilant in his heart, but on the surface he showed a gentle smile that made people feel like spring breeze and chatted with Omida Nozomi. However, completely beyond Senju Cheng's expectations, Omida Nozomi not only did not make any requests, but also praised Senju Cheng in almost all directions. What is the rising star of the Seireitei and the pillar of the 4th Division, and I think Vice Captain Senju has the demeanor of a captain, and if it weren't for the weight of 5 or 6 tails under Senju Cheng, I'm afraid even Senju Cheng would be blown away by Omida Nozomi. When Omida Nozomi learned that Senju Cheng was worried about the renovation of the 4th Division's dormitories and the funding problem, Omida Nozomi patted his chest on the spot and said that the Omida family could afford the renovation of the 4th Division's dormitories. As for the conditions proposed by Omida Nozomi, all he needed was for Senju Cheng to guarantee that he would provide free physical examinations and free treatment to members of the Omida family every year. Suddenly, Senju Cheng's eyes changed when he looked at Omida Nozomi, and his words became more intimate and warm. As long as you pay, and this is not a sucker, king of licking, or fat guy, this is clearly the guest of honor of my Vice Captain Senju Cheng of the 4th Division. After all, even if the funds of the 4th Division were not in short supply, since the 4th Division was almost destroyed, it would be difficult to completely repair it to the previous level even if all the funds in the team were used up. Originally, Senju Cheng had already prepared some installment payment schemes to repair the 4th Division's barracks as soon as possible and restore the operation of the 4th Division to normal. Unexpectedly, there was such a good thing. Of course, Senju Cheng also knew that this was a naked favor from Omida Nozomi. The annual regular checkups and treatments were just to save the face of Senju Cheng and the 4th Division. Chapter 150. It's all Harukisu explain. Then, Cheng Senju confirmed the details of the renovation of the 4th Division's barracks with Nozomi Omida in detail. Nozomi Omida's ability was also quite eye-catching. Especially in terms of how to flatter the captain's experience, Cheng Senju learned a lot from Nozomi Omida. This guy, not only can he flatter people without making them feel embarrassed or hypocritical, but also speaks without leaking a drop of water, and is even good at taking care of other people's face and dignity. He also has a good grasp of various tedious details. Cheng Senju secretly evaluated Nozomi Omida, and paid more attention to Nozomi Omida. The Omida family is worthy at being the right-hand man and adjutant of the Shifu Yuan family for generations. This status passed down from generation to generation seems to be not only based on flattery and licking, but also has outstanding abilities. At least, among the vice captains that Cheng Senju knows, Nozomi Omida's ability is outstanding, and he is indeed a perfect candidate for the position of vice captain. When Omida Nozomi and Senju Cheng were discussing the details of the ward renovation, he suddenly remembered something and asked anxiously, "By the way, Vice Captain Senju, my son Omida Nozomi seems to be still in the ward of the 4th Division's barracks. Is he okay?" Senju Cheng was startled, and the bloody appearance of Omida Nozomi flashed through his mind, and then he smiled and said, "My dear son, I was the one who treated him last night. He was slightly injured when the barracks collapsed, but he is completely fine after treatment." "Then I am relieved." Omida Nozomi breathed a sigh of relief when he heard this, and just when he was about to continue to deepen his friendship with Senju Cheng, Shifu Yuan Yorishi came out with Shifu Yuan Yushiro, and said in a tone that could not be refused, "Nozomi, we'll talk about those unnecessary things later. Now I need to discuss something with Cheng. You take Yushiro down to rest first, and then the affairs of the 2nd Division and the secret mobile team will be handed over to you during this period." "Yes." Omida Nozomi's expression became serious, and he quickly responded respectfully, and then planned to take Shifu and Yushiro away. wait. Shigeru Yorishi stroked his chin and said to Omita Nozomi in a tone that seemed to contain some unclear meaning. Hachi Shawaya, no, should you be called Seireitei? She has begun to embark on the path of mastering Bankai. Discuss more affairs of the 2nd Division and the secret mobile team with Seireitei, and cultivate Seireitei's decision-making ability. Do you understand? Although Omita Nozomi looks like a fat man who is proficient in licking, he is actually very smart. His expression suddenly became a little unbelievable, and he asked in shock. Master Yorishi, what you mean is, Shigeru Yorishi said without saying much, with a warning look in his eyes. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask, just do what you should do. Omita Nozomi was silent for a few breaths, then he bowed down and made a great salute, touching his forehead to the ground, and said loudly. The Omita family will definitely follow the will of the Shigeru family. Go! Shigeru Yorishi crossed his arms and looked down at Omita Nozomi who was lying on the ground. Although Omita Nozomi had done this kind of exaggerated behavior countless times in the past. But this time, Shigeru Yorishi couldn't help but feel a little touched in his heart, but on the surface, he still waved his hand with that impatient look and said. Go, don't yell every day, be calm next time. Yes, Master Yorishi. Omita Nozomi agreed respectfully, and then pulled Shigeru Yushiro, who was still a little confused, out of the room. As the door closed, Shigeru Yorishi finally looked at Senju Makotao, and said with a tone of feeling. Makotao, do you feel that Nozomi's usual style is too flattering? In fact, this is also to show loyalty to the Shigeru family, so that the members of the Shigeru family can get used to distinguishing flattery from an early age, and avoid being confused by the slander of the outside world. After a pause, Shigeru Yorishi's eyes gradually became unfriendly, and said. So, how did you make Yushiro trust and get close to you in such a short time? Senju Makotao was stunned, and for a moment he couldn't keep up with Shigeru Yorishi's thinking from Omita Nozomi to Shigeru Yushiro. TSK, what an annoying guy, Shigeru Yorishi said, and then the whole person lazily lay down on the tatami, and stretched out his hand to pat the tatami, indicating Senju Makotao to sit down and talk. Then, Shigeru Yorishi seemed to feel something uncomfortable, and was not at all afraid of the innocent boy like Senju Makotao being in front of him. Just like that, Shigeru Yorishi directly reached out and lifted up his clothes to take a few glances, revealing a large area of ripples, and then suddenly approached Senju Makotao and asked playfully. Makotao, you guys didn't secretly do anything to me while you were treating me, did you? Senju Makotao slightly tactically leaned back, away from Shigeru Yorishi's golden eyes full of scrutiny, pushed his glasses, and answered seriously. Master Yorishi, please don't slander the professional ethics of a doctor. Shigeru Yorishi couldn't help but say with a smile. It's just a joke, Makotao is sometimes too serious, which makes me unable to help but tease him. Senju Makotao heard this and felt a sense of guilt for some reason. Although, during the treatment process, Senju Makotao didn't have any extra thoughts at all, but was extremely focused on treating Shigeru Yorishi. But one thing that must be admitted is that after this treatment, Senju Makotao can be sure that no one in the entire Soul Society knows Shigeru Yorishi's body better than himself. Not to mention the microscopic measurements, height, weight, hair shape, etc., even at the microscopic level of spirit particles. What is Shigeru Yorishi's structure from inside to outside? Senju Makotao can be said to be clear. Master Yorishi, did you keep me here on purpose to discuss something? Senju Makotao asked seriously. Yes, talking about business. Shigeru Yorishi's expression became completely serious and spoke. I have learned about the general course of events last night from Yushiro. I'm sorry, I committed evil and destruction to the 4th Division. Although all this is not my original intention, under such circumstances, Makotao is still willing to treat me. Shigeru Yorishi is very grateful. At this point, Shigeru Yorishi bowed his head to Senju Makotao to express his gratitude. Senju Makotao shook his head and followed Shigeru Yorishi's words, answering in a tone that was consistent with his position and personality. I also understand that Master Yorishi is a victim, and all the blame should be placed on the captain of the 12th Division, Uehara Kisuke. No matter what, I will never forgive him. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.